debug Node.js.
Sorry. Please continue.
And this DevTools protocol is not only used by Chrome DevTools front right now. And I think people might already been using it that we've been using it for in VS Code, and VS Code dash JSON dash debug is the extension that enables the VS Code to debug a Node.js process. It's also built on top of the Chrome DevTools protocol. So this protocol is basically everywhere, and people might not be aware about that, but it's the fundamental protocol that we built the debugger on Node.js. So this protocol is not only about debugging JavaScript specifically, so like setting a breakpoint or stepping into a function. It also supports like web API inspection, like we have been using in a Chrome web page. We can inspect the network requests and inspect the storage of a page, and we can also inspect the caches of a specific website. So we are also, in the recent years, Node.js also introduces new web APIs into the runtime, like Fetch or Node SQLite or web storage. And this means that we can also implement these backend protocols to enable the Chrome DevTools frontend to inspect these features, like inspect the network request of a Node.js process and inspect the SQLite databases in the DevTools, which we don't have for a developer. They don't have to install extra tools to debug a Node.js process. And Node.js also supports the web, the worker threads API, which might not be identical to the web workers, but they are providing similar features with a similar concept. So we also want to support automatically connect to automatically connect to a worker that we instantiated in a Node.js process in DevTools. So, and we just declared the Chrome DevTools support to be a tier 2 debugging tool in Node.js last week. This suggests that we are running DevTools protocol in a daily process in Node.js testing infrastructure, and a test failure in Node.js of DevTools protocol will block the Node.js releases. And so this was a very late declaration because DevTools protocol is already the de facto protocol to debug a Node.js process. So I think this is just a post-mortem declaration to officially declare that Chrome DevTools protocol is supported in Node.js. But anyway, it doesn't change anything in our current process. And like we just said, the protocol and the front end that we use to debug a Node.js process is two separate repos. I can hardly say that they are two separate projects. I mean, they are developed with the same team of the Chrome DevTools team. So, but anyway, the protocol will be implemented in the DevTools backend, which is, in our case, it will be a Node.js process. So it's implemented in the Node.js repository. And the front end is developed by the Chrome DevTools team, which also we invited them to join the session today to share. Maybe we can talk about the feature integration later. Well, we'll talk about that later. So thank you, DevTools team, for joining the session today. And why we are going to add more features to DevTools support in Node.js, the reason is that we have the Chrome DevTools front end basically everywhere, every Node.js developer's machine. So everyone, probably most people, I wouldn't assert that everyone have Chrome installed, but anyway, it's present in most Node.js developers workspace. So, and I think many JavaScript developers are aware of this front end tool, and they are very familiar with this debugging experience. And specifically for network inspection, we'll talk in details later, is that the DevTools provides a very smooth debugging experience with the network traffics, because we don't have to set up any HTTP proxy, we don't have to set up any man in the middle certificates to debug like HTTPS requests. So it's very convenient for a JavaScript developer, for a Node.js developer to inspect network traffics, to inspect Node.js network traffics with Chrome DevTools. So that's why we want to talk about this in this session. And of course, if we want to enable something in the DevTools for Node.js, we have to collaborate with the Chrome DevTools team. And the two projects work in a different way. The Chrome DevTools team has their working style, like features are usually driven by good design docs. And we previously also drafted up a network inspector design doc to get the ball rolling. And that's what might be a little bit different in Node.js developing process. So yeah, that's how we are going to drive the Node.js features in the DevTools to collaborate with Google Chrome DevTools team. And I think in the next steps for the integration, we should lead the Node.js developer experience and to work with the DevTools team to design what we are going to expose on the DevTools, and to use the existing DevTools front end features to inspect a Node.js process. So that will be a reusing existing infrastructure provided by the DevTools team. So it will be more easier for us to not rework a DevTools front end. But this means that we have to inform the DevTools front end team that we are going to enable some features in the DevTools, so they can be aware of this change, and they can help us identify if there are any features that's only suitable for the web development, not for Node.js development, and hide certain features that are not supported in Node.js. And that's basically the idea, that we have to collaborate with DevTools team. And let's jump through the features that we are going to enable in the near future. The first one is the network inspection, and we already have some basic support in DevTools front end and Node.js, latest Node.js version now. Some of you might be already aware of that. In the March release of Chrome, there is a new experimental network tab in the Chrome DevTools for Node.js is showing up. And this network tab can inspect Node.js network traffics when the Node.js is launched with -- experimental network inspection command line options. And this graph is not, I didn't take it from the screenshot of a Node.js process inspection. I will show that in a later recording. So in this view, we will be able to inspect Node.js HTTP requests, and let's do it in a good video recording.
Did you accidentally stop the streaming?
It shows it's still recording. Top right. So when we launch a Node.js process with the new flag, and we can find that in this script sends a request with batch API, and we can step into this script just like how we do right now. But what's new is that in this new network tab, we can find that this Node.js process sends a request, and we can inspect the headers and the status code, what this process sends and what this process receives. So we can inspect like what we are already being able to do with the network, with the Chrome web tab. And it also shows who sent the request. Like in this case, we can just click through these links on the Chrome DevTools UI. And in the future, we later in the later slide, we'll also talk about exposing the performance timings in the Chrome DevTools, like the network DNS resolution milestones. So in this timing, detailed performance timing tab, so this will help us to identify slow requests and why they are slow. So just like what we have been able to do on a web page. Yeah, that's basically the basic support of network inspection in Node.js. And of course, we have some more features to implement in the near future. The first is what we have mentioned. We need to expose like performance timing to expose these network milestones for performance inspection. We already have API to do that. It's just that we have to expose these milestones in the DevTools protocol in Node.js. And we also what we have shown in the video recording is that there are some weird patches I have to do to make it working, but it's not very optimal because we don't have some of the data available with existing inspection channel, like what we have been exposing with diagnostic channel in Windows, and which implements the fetch API in Node.js. So for example, we will talk about this. We will talk about this in detail later. That there are some missing informations about the inspection in Node.js, and we have to do weird patching. So yeah, going back to the future plan. And in future, we can probably also support the HTTP2 or HTTP3 inspection once we have these APIs available in Node.js. And also in the long term, we could also consider the network inception features, which is available on Chrome DevTools front end right now. We can modify a request on the fly on the web page in Chrome, but we cannot do it in Node.js right now. So that's another feature we can consider in Node.js as well. But anyway, that's for the long-term plan. It's not in the current plan of support, which we only want to export read-only inspection in Node.js. Yeah, That's for the network inspection plan. And the next part is the worker integration. And Node.js has a experimental protocol for node inspecting node workers right now, but it's only supported in the VS Code debugger. It's not supported in the Chrome DevTools front end. So the plan is that we have this node workers domain in the protocol for being experimental for years, but I mean, what's the plan to make it stable? After chatting with the Chrome Dev Tools team, I think that why we why should we implement a dedicated protocol for Node.js? Why can't we reuse DevTools infrastructure and DevTools protocol in Node.js as well? So maybe you can implement Chrome DevTools protocols stable domain target to enable the auto discovery of Node.js workers so that everyone who implements the stable Chrome DevTools protocol can be benefited from this chain, like Visual Studio, VS Code JS debugger, since it also supports inspecting Chrome web pages as well. So yeah, that's why we are going to do. And people have been complaining in Node.js issue tracker that for a very long time, that why don't we support inspecting a work thread in Node.js with the Chrome DevTools front? So that's why we should do that. And taking another video recording how this would be like. So with the new flag as well, we are still hiding this support in a experimental flag. Of course, this pull request was not merged yet. It's still a pull request, open pull request. So we are just showing how it will work. So in this case, we are launching the Node.js with a new experimental flag. And when we connect Chrome DevTools find to the Node.js process, we can find that we can step into the main process, main thread, and stepping again, we can find that we can now step into the work thread directly, and the Chrome DevTools front end will show the worker in the available targets to inspect. So this will make the experience more smooth with the new target auto discovery feature. So yeah, like what we have already been able to do in VS Code right now. But anyway, we are going to bring it to the DevTools front end as well. So the support will be universal with Node.js popular debugger. So yeah, I think that's basically the end of this talk, and we are going to talk about what we need to do in the near future. And we are calling out for collaboration in this field. The first one is the network inspection. And here the first item is we want a side effect free data inspection in Node.js to inspect Node.js HTTP requests and response, like the Node.js HTTP request is the Node.js HTTP incoming message is a stream readable, which is for receiving a response from an HTTP server, but we don't have a side effect free data inspection method right now yet. If we add a data event listener to this stream readable, the stream readable state will change into flowing mode, and that will make the API unable to be used by users because users might not be able to attach a data listener to the stream readable yet. So this will cause side effects, and we don't want to the DevTools attaching to a Node.js process to cause any side effects, promisingly. So yeah, And the second one is similar, that we don't have a side effect free interaction with stream writable, which is for the HTTP client request API. That is the request object that we sending a request. So yeah, and this is much more harder to do because we don't have a way to observe a writable data if we don't want to do monkey patching. But anyway, I mean, it is possible, but it's not satisfactory, and it can be properly observable with user code. So we want to do all of this in a satisfactory way for the Delta support. And the third one is specifically for Undich's new API, that is for fetch API and WebSockets. So we don't have any diagnostic channels for data inspection yet in Unity to inspect these JavaScript in DevTools. And yeah, the last item is that Node.js now that Node.js supports WebSockets natively. We probably want to explore WebSockets in the DevTools as well, which is very native way to, I mean, DevTools front end provides very intuitive way to inspect WebSocket connections. So it's good for us to reuse that infrastructure. But the issue is that Unity does not have a very suitable diagnostic channels for WebSocket inspections. For example, when we navigate through Unity's diagnostic channel document, you can find that currently these diagnostic channels for WebSockets are not really usable for a full feature inspection, like when this Unity column WebSocket column open is being fired. It's not the timing when user actually invokes the WebSocket API. So it's kind of late to trace who sends the WebSocket connection. And we don't have any WebSocket data channel as well. And the only two channels for WebSocket inspection is WebSocket ping and WebSocket home, but we don't have identities of that WebSocket connection. We only have payload, which means we don't know which which WebSocket connection is this ping is related to. So that's kind of useless for Delta's inspection. So we are calling out for collaboration in Node.js to improve this diagnostic channel support so that we can implement the Delta's inspection in a side effect free way. And yeah. And the second part of the collaboration is that this part is specifically for target auto discovery. We will need to draft a design doc to share with Google Chrome teams to describe what the auto discovery will be like. Because right now, Chrome DevTools team, Chrome DevTools frontend is able to automatically connect to a new workflow on the web, but it's not possible on Node.js. And the front end will do different things when it connects to a different target, because each target might have different capabilities. Like on the web, there are different workers, like service worker or just normal user land workers. So they have different capabilities. So front end will distinguish this by a target a different target type. So we need to describe what Node.js target is being able to do. And of course, we have to implement a proper Delta's protocol target domain in Node.js. And in the future, we can also explore ways like implementing the target.expo DevTools protocol so that we can enable custom DevTools extension to support, like imagine supporting the custom RPC protocols integration in DevTools with DevTools extension. So yeah, that's basically what we are proposing to do and to collaborate with the Chrome DevTools team. Yeah, that's all I have for now. That, and we can now go to the queue.
I don't think that's correct. The first statement, he says it does not support, you said it's does not, like, it's possible to connect from DevTools to worker threads in Node today.
Yeah. It's possible if we manually connect to a different endpoint.
Yes, so you need to you need some shenanigans on on the endpoints, but I essentially have it done. Okay, as part of a platformatic thing, we have that support built in.
Yeah.
So you can the way it appears. It appears as when you open Chrome Inspector, it appears as multiple individual node services.
Yeah.
And it works. Okay, it's not great as you it's not great, but it does work. To take the issue, it's yes, it does work. So it's not that it's missing. It's not that friendly, I would say, to do that.
Yeah. It works today. I mean, you have to manually connect. I mean, it's different from how we inspect a web workers on the Chrome.
Yes.
Because we have to manually connect to a different work target.
Mhm.
And yeah, it works. But I mean, it should, and it's a improvement that we can make.
Yes.
Yeah.
Related to, are you planning to send the PRs to add the side inspection data free? Sorry, side effect the diagnostic channel to all the bits?
I am afraid that I don't have capacity to support all of these data point these points, but I may find some time to support the some of them. I will decide.
Okay, if you can, for the Undici side, if you can open tracking issues of what you need.
Yeah.
I think the community will get them done, but frame, because you had a very clear cut explanation on what was missing.
Yeah.
On the current, and give that feedback. That feedback more or less has not been given to Undici, like all the diagnostic channel of Undici where let's do something and let's see if something sticks into the wall.
Yep.
Okay. And so please open an issue describing this does not work for us, this does not work, this does not work, so that we can the team can add them, because the team is very active. If we tag it as good first issue, that will get it done very quickly by the community.
Yeah.
So I presume that will be relatively easy. On the data event, okay.
Yeah.
On the first one, and the second one too, this is hard. Okay, those two are very hard for a lot of reasons. So I'm not even sure that will be doable for fetch. It will to get the full body. That will be 100% doable. Okay.
Yeah.
Getting individual chunks can be doable as well. So for Undici, I have very good hopes that this can be easy to do. For standard HTTP, I do have concerns. On sticking it in, but technically it's possible. It's possible, but open issues so that people can.
Yeah, sure. I think I will open issues separately for each of the points listed here.
Yeah.
So that we can check them.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
So a bunch of comments, I guess. This covers the client type of HTTP connection, but
Okay.
there was like some discussion happening about what might this look like for server, and if Google would have any interest in the other expression, like how much work, like Google doesn't really like us like handing a whole bunch of work to them. So how much work would it be to be able to have a representation that is suitable for the other direction? And how much of that can we do versus them doing? That's one question I had. Another thing is, so there's examples already of other like browser extensions that add tabs to Chrome DevTools. Like there's like a React thing that adds React specific stuff. Is there anything node specific that would warrant our own tabs, that like we can build our own thing to add more things? What would those be?
Yeah, I think these two questions are pretty much for Chrome DevTools, and Daniel is asking in the chat if we have any question for him specifically for network panel. I think, yeah, what Stephen was saying. Will Chrome DevTools support node.js server-side request inspection? I think this is a question for DevTools team.
Okay, I think I've shared my thoughts on this. Hi, I'm Daniel. I'm tech lead of Chrome DevTools. I don't see any reason why we cannot do that, but we have to be careful in how we proceed, because supporting incoming requests is very different. Debugging incoming requests is very different than debugging outgoing requests. So if we were to do that, we have to think carefully about how EX looks like. I think there is a big potential to confuse people. So I'm not even sure it belongs in the network panel at all. Maybe it does, but in a separate view, or maybe those requests need to be clearly separated. But also additionally on the protocol level, I'm pretty sure that this has to be done in a separate domain, because the essence of what we are debugging is very different, even though these are also network requests. What's happening is actually requests are being sent in a different direction. So you have different set of events, different set of data available to you. So we definitely don't want to conflate this very much with debugging of outgoing requests. With regard to separate panel, because this touches on this, yeah, I mean, this is possible in principle. We have to look into specific use cases and see what can be supported. The existing infrastructure for extensions might not be sufficient for building something like network panel for the incoming requests. It's pretty much tailored to the web use case. But again, this is something that I think we can discuss on the basis of specific feature we would like to build. We're not fundamentally against it, as opposed to us not liking to get additional work. Well, obviously, we are working against our priorities, and these are mostly around supporting debugging in Chrome. So it would be hard to take on anything that is, very specific to Node use case. However, like if the work is, generally, if whatever we would like to change makes sense generally, if it does benefit other use cases, as it does benefit Chrome, like things could be done. We should also distinguish the amount of work. Like if we talk about hiding certain things based on what target could support, we talked about it. I think that's super reasonable. There's no way why we should not spend time on making sure we're not showing irrelevant UI. If we're talking about building out a separate panel just for the incoming requests, yeah, it's unlikely that we are going to stop this. We could help whoever is ready to spend time on this and guide through and do the code reviews and weigh in on the UX, but we won't be able to dedicate significant engineering effort to that.
Yeah, so that kind of connects to, so I had a couple more thoughts. I'll distribute them over time, but connected to that specifically, with like HP3 and specifically the like quick coming, I don't know too clearly what the plan is for implementing quick in the browser. But with that being closer to a raw socket than WebSocket is, I'm wondering how much that will require related changes to represent more generalized sockets in the dev tools, and if that can be partially a vehicle for representing more generalized sockets in Node. Like, could we have some sort of infrastructure that we could see TCP sockets?
I was going to generalize that even further and say, because I use a lot of child process. So like, it's not a socket, but it's like a file descriptor. It's just bytes in and out. I want to be able to inspect when I'm forking processes and like ideally be able to sort of snoop on their standard IO and things like that. That'd be quite useful. Like, feels like it probably would need a separate tab. I don't know.
If you check the recent CLs on the DevTools repo, and specifically something called Direct Socket View, there's basically a feature for Chrome apps that allows you something which is very, very close to TCP sockets. And we're adding support for this, well, for the feature team, not DevTools team, but the Chrome team who is building this out is also adding support for that. And I think this is the level of details where I think we could define a feature that is generally useful. And the other have been more interested in supporting socket debugging. So I think that sounds like something we could work on together.
And just a note, and just a note on the quick support in Node. As that progresses, it will have much better built-in primitives for tapping into these things that we should be able to leverage. I think once we make some progress there, going back to the HP2, the HP1, TCP, these things, and adding more of those primitives, and getting alignment should be pretty straightforward. So adding things like zero side effect spying on some of these things would be, I think, would be a priority.
I have a kind of different question if you're done with the network.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So I use the Chrome Dev for quite a lot programmatically. So I don't really use the UI part to inspect the node process, but inside Node I do a lot of work with talking to a node process through the API. And I was wondering how much the Google team would be interested in extending the API with certain things that might benefit Node. It doesn't change the UI at all, but But if I can come with an example, for example, so when you set a breakpoint, there's a condition, but there is no flag, no option on the setting of the breakpoint to say allow side effects, true false on that condition, for example. So there will be like a feature that for our use case would be super useful. And there's similar things like that. I have a whole list. I'm not gonna list it up here, but I'll just very generally hear from Google how interested they would, like, is it a no-go to change these things, or if we can come up with, we can show a good use case for it, would as long as it's not like a breaking change, obviously, but if it's something that can be added, for example, in this case, allow side effects, true false, if that can be added without being a breaking change, would stuff like that be relevant to the Google team as well?
So maybe I can answer this because I do a lot of work on the inspector. So hi, my name is Simon. Generally, yes, if it makes sense. We have to see if it's also possible. So side effects evaluation is kind of tricky. So I'm not exactly sure if we can even support it in like debug evaluate, which is what conditional breakpoints use under the hood, right? So basically it's just like pauses and then it does a debug evaluate at that point that you're paused and checks what comes back and then continues execution. And I'm not sure if the side effect check for that actually is like possible or not. We'd have to take a look at it. But yeah, feel free to kind of like prototype it for a bit, write a small design doc, like a one-pager, and send it to us. And if it makes sense, we can land that in V8 with some tests that make sure that it like does not break. Like we are happy to accept those kinds of patches if they make sense. And like this particular one, potentially, if it's actually implementable, I'd have to look at the details again for this one in particular. But yeah, it's basically based on feature by feature decision, right? How much it makes sense or not.
Okay, so the approach is basically take it feature by feature, write a design doc, potentially, make a prototype of it.
Yeah, exactly.
And then reach out to you or somebody on the team.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we are not opposed to adding new features to the debugger. It's just it's not a priority for us because, to be honest, most developers don't actually use those debugging capabilities. So only a fraction of users actually put breakpoints and do stepping, and even a fraction of those actually use conditional breakpoints. So it's not a priority for us to like make that those features more rich, right? Because it doesn't help a lot of users, but we are certainly happy to accept patches there if it makes sense.
Yeah. So the more work we can do up front to actually make potentially even make a PR, right? The better. The higher the chance of it potentially landing.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. So the easier it is for us to justify this existing, the higher chances are that this will land. And I second Simon on everything. This is the approach we're taking. On the more general level, so there are a few things about the protocol. One is, as you mentioned, you don't want to break anything. This would be a problematic. If it does break existing use case, if it's an API that is already in use, we probably won't be able to change its behavior. Also, everything that is like debugger related, V8 related, we will share the implementation. Everything else, you will have to implement it or in Node, and then we have to think if browser can implement it, if it makes sense. So it's also different for debugger versus other domains. And the third thing is we still see protocol as implementation detail. This is, the reality doesn't quite reflect that, and you said it's a de facto standard, and we realize that, and we are absolutely unwilling to make anybody's life harder. But if push comes to shove, and if we really need to think about something that costs us too much in terms of protocol, our fundamental stance on this is the implementation detail. Whereas WebDriver BiDi is a standard that we are trying to work on and trying to have as a supported API. Now, don't get like too sensitive to what I'm saying, right? Like, as I said, we are willing to support all the existing customers, and we're not willing to change or break things willy-nilly. But it's also in terms of like how we see things. This is fundamentally still the implementation detail. Hope that makes sense.
Thank you.
By the way, I also want to thank you that you're joining the session here today, because when it comes to that, like you said, okay, like we should reach out to you. It has been in the last few years a little bit more difficult to really interact between V8 and Node. Is there any direct communication way that you would suggest is good to just even just exchange about a SOP before you put together the doc, just like a few short words?
Sure, talk to us, send an email. You probably know our email.
The question is pretty much like, what communication way is probably good?
Well, I personally don't like chat. So if you can send me an email at dsv@chromium.org, that's the best way to reach out to me. The DevTools team itself has been rebooted a few years ago. So if you're indexing on any experience you had like before 2020, more or less, we are different people. We're a different team right now.
I'm aware of that. Thank you.
But one thing I wanted was may or may not ever actually materialize is having at least parts of the parts of the protocol exposed as C++ interface instead of going through all this serialization and deserialization dance. Because there's a certain amount of things like the debugger that you might want to do, like live debugging and do that in a performant way. So how receptive would the V8 project be to, like, if another company came along and was like, we're gonna give you a bunch of code that does this, would the V8 team be willing to accept like a C++ interface to some subsection of the debugger protocol?
So I'm not sure how this even work in all the use cases with remote debugging or like inter-process debugging. So I'm not sure how exactly this could work. There is something like that, and it's called V8/inspector. This is basically the layer which connects the core VA with debugger. And I think this is basically C++ debugging API you're asking for. So I think there is some potential to get this extended. But again, like I'm not even sure what the use case is and how this is supposed to work if this is not running on the same machine.
Yes, Jason.
Maybe I can add on that. V8 only implements the JavaScript debugger protocol, and apart from that, like network inspection and any other work inspection, these are implemented by Node. So if we need C++ API, fine, let's add a Node. I think that's not really a question for V8 because V8 only implements JavaScript debugger, like breakpoints, step into some scripts. So that's all.
But yeah, I'm not like only referring to like debugger specifically though, but just like there's a bunch of very useful stuff in the overall protocol that like APM vendors would certainly benefit from being able to access this data in a more performant way than going through the serialization and deserialization.
We need also some data on this if the deserialization is really problematic, because even within C++ APIs, there are multiple processes and data gets serialized and deserialized all the time, even within Chrome. So I'll be skeptical if this is really a source of performance issues. I would like to get some data backing this up.
So I can I think one small performance win would be if we land a PR that I sent a while ago that like the V8 inspector currently duplicates all the CDP messages, like flattens them out again, because the node does not consistently check if inspector strings are UTF-8 or UTF-16, and so they hacked into V8 like a check that kind of like duplicates it, so node doesn't fall off the path there. I sent a PR to fix this up, but it never made it through CI. So that would already take like a big bit of serialization thing of the thing. But otherwise, I agree with Daniel. It's like serialization is normally not a big problem. Like even in Chrome, right? If you inspect the web page, there's like 5 processes involved, like the network service, the renderer process, the browser process, and all of those talk CDP, and we serialize the protocol via CBOR across these processes. So until a CDP message makes its way from the page you're inspecting to the DevTools render itself, it jumps across like 3 or 4 processes, and all of that is fine most of the time. So it's, yeah, even for tracing.
Fine is relative when you're talking about a server that could have like, if you're looking at like the network introspection thing, for example, a node server might have tens to hundreds of thousands of HTTP requests in a second. Having that feed into the DevTools is going to be a mess. Whereas if we try to listen to that programmatically, like we might actually be able to do that reasonably. There's examples like that where like if you are a like super high scale Node.js user, you're probably not going to want to use a bunch of this stuff because it's going to fall over.
Yeah, I acknowledge that, but it's probably also not realistic to expect. Like I wouldn't expect V8 to accept an inspector API that's purely C++ that duplicates the API that doesn't have a user outside of Chrome, probably.
I think what Stephen has been describing is a very different use case from the Delta's Prime use case, which is primarily used for a smaller scale debugging purpose, Node.js server or client, whichever. But I mean, in that case, the scale of requests will be much more smaller than the actual in production Node.js environment. And we are unlikely to connect inspector to the production Node.js process because that will de-optimize the job script, which will cause huge performance hit to a Node.js process in production. So I think that would be
There are a lot of people that are doing that in production though.
Well, I'm not saying that it's not possible. I mean, it will cause performance hit in a production Node.js process.
It will, but a lot of people are doing it. So saying it's bad is not going to stop people from doing it when it provides a whole bunch of value for them.
I do it sometimes. I take one of the servers off like the new traffic and then debug like one specific server with the inspector. So
It doesn't receive traffic, it's not production.
But is it in fact still the case that it's de-optimizing once you attach the debugger? I thought that was improved a while back.
And it's very handwavy. Like what gets optimized and de-optimized varies a lot on like what you're doing.
I can answer that actually. So the V8 will run and Turbofont keeps optimizing everything unless you start to put breakpoints in stuff. But there is other instrumentation that comes at a cost. So for example, if you know the async stack traces stuff, right? And the async stack traces, when you do like console trace or have a breakpoint set and you pause there. So if you enable async stack trace optimization, that comes at the performance cost because at every promise.then or every await suspend, you will fall out of the generated code and take a stack trace that then the inspector stores. So it depends on kind of if you enable or disable async stack traces while you're attached with the debugger and or if you start putting breakpoints in like hot code, because as soon as you hit the breakpoint, then of course we'll de-opt that function because the debugger only works on the ignition bytecode, not the turbofan bytecode. But everything, if you just open DevTools or if you attach DevTools to a node work, like to a node process or a page, normally like the optimized code stays as it is, modulo like the async stack traces and some other instrumentation. But yes, not everything gets de-opted. That would be terrible.
It's just the function that you're attaching the breakpoint to.
Yeah.
Well, we are at time. Before we closing out, do we have any other questions to like from team? Well, if not, thank you very much for joining the session today and yeah. Thank you. Okay. My function is you share my screen.
It's a thing. Figure out what's going on there.
Normal node is
Can you just share my screen?
Pretty interesting.
I don't know if they roll out or- I think they have expected.
When can we start? You in 5 minutes? We make the photo. We make the photo now. What do we do? Start the session?
Just 30 seconds.
Okay. I can just click like this and that's it. All right. Welcome to the Next 10 Survey 2025 session. So we will talk about the
the survey that we were going to do this year. And we wanted to change how the survey works. So last year we had 3,000 respondents, which is a 200% increase from 2023, which is a lot. This year we want to improve it even more, and we want to have more respondents. So we want the survey to be a tool where we actually take it in consideration and it's some data that it's actually useful. There were some issues last year. The major issues that collaborators who were working on the survey were farmed out a little bit. The information in the survey itself was stale because we need to add some technical data, for example, on experimental features, on features that user want or don't want. And this requires people from specific areas of expertise of the project to give their input. And it was very hard to review. In fact, we have to send survey to the foundation, and the foundation will use their social media accounts to, they use Monkey Survey to release the survey. And last year we were told by the foundation that it was very stressful because we were doing last minute changes and people were like, one day before this was published that we wanted to make several changes. So it was very hard, very stressful process. So we decided to change this process. And so new approach. We go through it together. So the next 10 team has prepared the questions. So we will go today through the survey and we will gather the feedback at the end. There will be a deadline, which is the 16th of April, and that day we will send the survey regardless, and we will ignore any last minute feedback. So this is you have 2 weeks, and you have all this 1 hour session to give your feedback and to improve the survey, and after that it will be over. So. You will be able to send the feedback after the survey. We have an easy retro board, which is the same one that we used yesterday for Jean session about collaboration. Or there is the PR that is open on the Next 10 report I linked in the Slack channel where you can review. No last minute changes, and let's try to get the biggest part in of the survey now. So annotate your feedback while we will do it very slowly. In real life, the survey should not take more than 10 minutes. Now we will go through each question, you will annotate your feedback, and at the end, time will be provided to put the feedback into the board. Every question will be numbered. There will be a number on the left top. So you will be able to track down every question by its number. Some useful feedback is question 3 is missing this option, or we should add this option. Keep in mind that open questions are bad and people are not answering open questions. So we try to have everything multiple choice, but not open questions. So we don't want people to write a lot of stuff.
You mean like free response questions?
Yeah, no free responses, those are bad. So let's start the survey. We will take a couple of minutes for each question, and please annotate the feedback. Okay, first question, first part is demographics. We start by asking where they are based and this kind of stuff. So first question is, where do you currently live? And we should ideally have a list of countries. And you should be able to insert the country where you live. Okay.
Can you put the link on the screen so make sure we're share the Slack channel?
You mean the presentation?
No, the link of the board.
Is it already in the Slack channel?
Yeah.
Yeah, wait. Can find the old caps. Yeah. So, okay, we can go to the next.
Just below the easy retro link, there is a second link that is not the title of the picture. Yeah. With a pull request.
Yes, that's a chat. Okay. Yeah, second question is, how long have you been working with Node.js? Number list from 0 to 15 plus. So well, 15 plus is particular. This is probably
Big calculation. Not possible, unless you're Randall.
yeah.
So actually, yeah, maybe we don't say 15 plus because.
Feedback at the end.
Oh, okay.
Let's put stuff in the user report as we go.
Yes.
Yes, you
Okay.
can either like write it down or put it at the end, but at the end we will have time for everyone to add the feedback. Okay, next question. In what kind of organization are you working in? So we have big tech company, startup, academia, etc.
So really this one, if you are finding other organization with event list, please feel free. The main idea is one day to be able to read the other, because it's really cumbersome to parse and read 2,000, 3,000 answer, and some people writing something that is close to one of the previous choice. So
yeah, we want to avoid people using the other field, so we can have more options. And if you feel like something is missing, please tell us. Okay, guess we can. Next one. If working in a company, in which sector does your company operate? We have energy, material, industrials, healthcare, financials, IT, real estate. Okay, let's go to number 5. Now, this is the section dedicated about Node.js usage, so how people use Node.js. Which of the following best reflects your role regarding Node.js? This is a multiple choice. So if you are a maintainer, you are front-end, back-end, full stack, tooling, end user, you are a application operator. Okay. I think we can go to the next one. Is it okay? All right. So if you need more time, just tell me. Number 6, how does the organization invest in JavaScript related projects? So does the organization invest? If so, how? Like sponsoring your time to work for Node, giving money to the project, using Open Collective, or sponsors, OpenJS Foundation membership. This is mostly to let people know that we have this kind of ways where you can support Node. So this is
Subtle.
yeah, this is a subtle.
Are you aware code doesn't write itself?
Yeah. This is the marketing question.
Which of the following will you discuss with your manager after this?
Okay. Next. Number 7. What is your use case of Node.js? CLI tools, testing, these are multiple choice. APIs with microservices, serverless, full stack development, mobile, HTTP proxy, IoT. Good question. Right. go to the next one. Now we talk about binaries, how people use, like how people interact with Node.js binaries, where do they get their binaries, which kind of binaries do they use, etc. So first question is, what is your operating system for your local development? Multiple choice, so you have like Linux, Windows, Mac OS, and it's like you use Docker or a virtualized environment, or you use Windows with WSL or Android, because a lot of people apparently using Android. That's what we got from the last year's survey.
To develop.
Yeah.
So yeah, we had tonight had unexpected
Surprise.
results. Yeah, my lord.
Yes.
We will question why.
Okay.
Well, it's Linux.
Go to the next one.
Right.
What is your operating system in which you are running Node.js in production? So the first question was development. This is about production. And we have like Linux, Windows, Mac, so like we have some serverless and unknown, because a lot of people don't know that when you run stuff on serverless, it's actually running on a OS.
Wait, there's a server? No. Serverless. OSs.
Yeah. Okay.
Production.
Go to number 10. What architecture is the machine you are running Node.js in production? Yeah, I think we can.
The other with the question mark is because you don't want to write it in the survey, or because like
No, it's a type.
Okay.
Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. Yeah. Next one. How do you get your node executables? Multiple choice. You use a version manager and VM and VS Volta, Mise, VF. You use the official installer. You use a package manager like npm or yarn, because you can do npm install node. Yeah, you use a system package manager. You download your binaries from the website. You build the source. You set up an image. Okay. Number 12. What package manager do you use? Multiple choice, npm, yarn, the legacy one, the modern yarn, npm, ban, other. Okay. Number 15. Which version managers do you use? Multiple choice, NVM, SDF, and FNM. Like most of them I don't even know they. If you know more version managers, please add them, because we will include them. Okay. Next, how do you manage the package manager for your project? You have one version installed globally. You use a specific tool to specify the version. You use core, pack, SDF. You use containers. So you have everything box or other. Which one is your manager? Yeah. Apparently it's a hot topic. Okay. Next question. We have project priorities and direction. So we'll talk about like what is the future and if we're going in the right direction. Number 15, which of the current technical priorities are important to you? Well, HTTP3, ESM, TypeScript, native add-ons, performance, a bunch of things that are relevant. Okay, let's go to the number 16. Are there technical priorities that you believe are missing? This is an open question. Should we keep this question? Should we remove it? Should we add another option into the previous one? I don't know. This is the kind of feedback that we would like you to give us. Okay. Number 17, what is important to you? And we have quite a big list. We keep adding new things every year, so it gets like bigger. Maybe we can collapse some of these points together. So there is a PR that matches these slides one-to-one. So if you want to go back to like to think more about it, you can just the PR. We have a hand raised.
Yeah, we hear me correctly?
Sorry, no.
Do you hear me correctly?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. There a question about easy installation. Is it about Node.js or package?
What's the number of the question?
1, 2, 3, 6.
To number this.
Like the sixth one on the slide.
Which one?
The sixth one.
Oh, easy installation. Yeah, of Node.js.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. I think we can go to the next question. So this is a big one. 18. What is important to you that is not in the list? It's pretty hard.
HP longer.
Okay. Yeah, we're almost done. Next, we have a few technical questions. The first one is, are you using the following experimental features? We have core parsing hooks, SCA and TypeScript and other things. If you see things that are missing, please add them.
This TV button.
Like, yeah, that's the okay. Next, are you using the following new stable features? We have a bunch of features. It's kind of hard to know what are the new stable features, so I have to go dig into the PRs, and that's the hard part.
Oh, it was new.
Yeah.
It's hard for the users as well to know what's new.
Yeah, exactly.
So
okay. So this point is actually pretty important because we have launched an ambassador program. So we have now people, content creators that will create content based on these features. So whenever we have we have features that the project wants to talk about, create content, we can do that, but we have to identify which are the topics. And you can already send something that you want content to be created about on the Node.js repo. There is an ambassador program repo, and you can send your ideas there. Okay, do you encounter any recurring issues when using Node.js that you would like to share with us? So this is an open question. Last year we got like 1 million answers about JS, ESM interoperability, TypeScript support, performance. So it's it's useful because you get a lot of feedback.
Is there a character limit, or could people just go crazy?
Some people went crazy. Yeah, yeah, they brought their like this. Okay, so yeah, that was it. So it's feedback time. So now we will go and look at the board to see what are the results and start aggregating them and talk about talking about them and what you like, what you did not like. Okay. So you find the link in the Slack channel, and there is also the link to the PR if you want to give feedback directly on the code. And there we go. Let's give 5 minutes. Well, that's a good lead. That's a lot.
Maybe don't give any more minutes.
So yeah, 5 more minutes. Write your feedback, and then we will reveal it and work on it.
I just tried, and unfortunately, I am not able to from my laptop for some reason. I don't know why. I'm so sorry.
I told you downstairs as well as the desk can they can do something.
Or I could pause. Well, I was gonna say.
At 3, we start revealing.
So your hotel will do it.
I can see something.
That is a lot. We also enable well, after we
I think that's already done. I do the word count. I can disable it. Oh,
okay, yeah.
depends. I just put one word per card on both tables, but 100% card.
Oh yeah, yeah. One word per card. No, one word per card. Okay.
I just put two. Okay, we have a.
Yeah, we start the reveal in 2 minutes.
How many votes do you want per user? My default yesterday was 2 per column, but
Yeah, I think
more. Let's say we want to put 10 for the football.
5 per column. Maybe?
5 per column.
Yeah.
Done.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can, like everything, everyone's done. Yeah, okay, we can reveal. Okay.
If we're gonna vote on them, should we maybe exclude the simple typos? Because I think they're quite unobjectionable. I added a couple.
Yeah,
and
typos,
I just deleted them
yeah.
last minute because I didn't think it was worth discussing them.
I mean, there will be in the bottom, at the bottom, so.
I guess what I mean is people shouldn't vote for them.
I mean, if
Seems like
you
a
want,
waste
if
of-
you really think that is important.
Well, they're gonna get done either way, surely.
Yeah, so, okay, then we can start by voting.
Okay, how many?
You have 5 votes per person,
Yeah.
column,
Per
per column, yeah, sorry.
Well, they should remove. We didn't consolidate any of them, right? We should probably consolidate a few of the suggestions. Like there's multiple mentions of big tech versus company ambiguity.
Not sure.
You can merge these things together, right? Like if like there's multiple of these cards are exactly the same. We should do that before.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Looks like anyone can do it, but I don't know if we want to take the lead on it.
Typos, we can.
Well, the points don't have slide numbers.
Zero to package manager. Okay. Okay, this is
Maybe for the more direct, feedback, we might as well just leave a comment in the pull request.
yeah, for like typos, you can just
Yes.
comment that.
Suggest.
Yeah, suggest changes on the pull request. I think we can drop them. Yeah, like these ones. Well, there are so many that it's also hard to group them. Okay. Okay, fine. Okay, this is great. Typo, with the other typo.
We'll be talking about Solaris in AI. God. For real. So I'm sorry. I feel like somebody's put Solaris in it.
Let's see. Yeah, I mean, I asked specifically to include the number because now if what organization you're working in, I have to go to read all the questions and see which one was this one. So please use the question number. List options in order in alphabetical order. That's true. Por três, né?
Sí. Usually it's this way.
Somebody's added technical priorities, add SAE. Is that meant to be
SCA.
SEA?
Yeah.
Typo in the feedback. What do you do with that feedback for the feedback?
Are you using deprecated or legacy features? Can we order by votes?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh.
Okay, sweet. Okay.
There's like a protein for
Require SM is release candidates or remove. I mean, that's experimental, so it's experimental. Technically. Specify.
You can X your vote. Oh, okay. If you want to change it.
very easy to spend your 5 votes before you get to the end. Five better than mine. So.
Yeah, I think this one I can offer.
This one are the same.
Yeah, if they're the same, you can merge them.
You can just drag one on top of the other.
Okay, this is for company. Last question, if possible, list, yes. There are some typos again. Yeah, let's see. Okay, so let's start by suggestions. So like I feel like the first two questions are a bit ambiguous. We can go back to them. This one. Okay, so remove options that are not possible. 50 plus here, so we should be, I guess, 10 plus would make more sense.
Why is 15 plus not possible?
I mean, it is possible if you started in 2010.
I mean, I started in 2009.
So yes, yeah.
Yeah, so we should not remove 15 then, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's the answer.
Right, yeah.
I saw another item in there. Will it be stratified? Will it be like 0 to 5, 0 to 2, or will it just be each number?
Sorry, what do you mean? Oh yeah, it will be.
I think that's maybe worth discussing if it is going to
Yeah.
have ranges in there. What the
You
range
can lose a lot
would
of
be.
resolution if you pick the wrong range.
I think we can do some resolution like the first.
Can I,
Like-
can I just point out, we just answer the question with what year did we start? Maybe just make it a year.
If it can just be a numeric answer, then
I mean, it could be just
how many years?
yeah.
So I was the one who put the comment about removing 15 plus. I meant like, does it, could we bump that higher to like 10 plus? Because does the information, does the delineation between 10 and 11 matter, or 10 versus 15?
But in some ways, it's nice.
Logarithmic scale.
If people just put the number of years, we can bucket as we see fit. Like maybe it turns out that it's irrelevant beyond 5 plus.
Yeah, I think it's possible to have an input that goes from 0 to 15.
Why require people to do the math? Like, you just said I started in
If we
2009, right? Just
If,
say
if
that.
we say 10 plus years, then that lines it up with the basically the launch of the foundation and basically node 4, you know. So if we say 10+ years, basically that's gonna give a period of time. Anytime before the foundation was formed, and then after that, I think is more useful signal. 15+, I don't think is actually going to be all that useful.
Okay, so we should limit to 10+. Okay. So okay, let's start from the left column. So we have, well, big tech company, startup, ambiguous. This is, should we just add like what we mean for big tech company or startup, like based on the, I don't know, number of employees or something like that, or we just merge
Yeah,
them?
I would eliminate the big tech in company and just basically say, companies of different size. So I'm sure there's some taxonomy out there that lists
Okay.
these, but like company of like under 100 people, company of between 100 and a couple thousand, company larger than that,
So we can just
Well, what do we care about? Do we care about organization size or maturity?
So yeah, on our side, when we created that question like 1 or 2 years ago, or one of the previous survey, it was really about that, seeing the maturity of people or company using Node.js, because there is a different maturity if you're working for an insurance company or a pharmaceutical company in France than if you are working for Google or Cloudflare or some other tech company anywhere in the world. So the idea was really to split that. I agree, it's maybe not the best terminology to define them, but that was to be able to see the difference of the answer between the two category of where you are working basically.
Yeah, I would probably change it to like people who work based on size rather than terminology of big tech. So if you work in a like 0 to 50 people company, or if you work in a 50 to 500 or 500 to, I don't know, something 10,000 plus.
What do people do when they're on the border?
I mean, it's just the best guess. So I mean,
That's what
if we
I'm
just say, we could even break it down to just 3 categories.
But is there a separate
big company,
question?
medium company, small company?
Is there a separate question for organization size then? Because then you could just get the numbers and just plot them.
But I think we said we don't care about the organization size. We're caring more about the maturity, right?
Also, how often they release.
Yeah, they relate. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not even sure if it's about maturity. I mean, so if we look at these, like, why do we care if it's a startup versus academia, or government, right?
Basically, I think we care if it's a startup or it's like a consultancy or it's like a government, because like we want to see startups are still adopting Node.js, and if they're not, we want to know.
Yeah.
Also, the corporate
Correct,
usage
so-
for Node.js is important.
The company size, I mean, like we actually can know that because a smaller company that's using Node, it's probably going to be using it for a lot, for different reasons than like a massive company that is using it as just part of their portfolio. So a smaller company is going to, more likely be saying Node is our part of our key core infrastructure, versus a large company it's one piece of a larger enterprise architecture. So I think having that distinction between small company, large company does tell us some useful signal. A lot more than big tech versus company.
Okay, so yeah, if we agree to make it based on size.
Well, for size, like that could just be a follow-up question for people who already identify as a company. It could be the follow-up for number 4 when they have to identify like which sector they're working in for the company.
That is an option, but I would like to avoid adding more questions because I see there are already plenty of questions. So.
Yeah.
I'm also pretty sure this is standardized already. Like we could just pull from, there's like a ton of standardization around like this type of selection. Like if you want, I could probably pull Twilio's standardization, but like there's a ton of, like this is a pretty normal.
That's a big way thing.
If we're interested in whether new organizations are choosing Node.js or not, then I think that applies to more than just for-profit companies. If a new department spun up in academia and they're making decisions about whether or not to use Node.js, it might be useful to know that as well. So definitely for non-profits as well.
We have the distinction between academia and.
Right, but we're saying that a lot of the value in this question is knowing whether people are still making choices to use Node.js as opposed to
Yeah.
Go or something. But if that is only expressed through the distinction between a startup and a company, then we're missing out on that data for non-profit, for all the other categories, basically. Like if you're a newly established non-profit and you're making a decision to use Node.js, that's a good sign for us, right? But if you're
Oh, you mean like they're not mutually exclusive?
yes, like we're trying to answer the question of like, are people still choosing Node.js, right?
Yeah, company covers like multiple of these.
Can't you ask how long their organization has been using Node.js? Because if you ask them, it's not relevant to their company. How long has the company been using?
Well, I mean, understanding what kind of organization I think is definitely important. We need to keep. I think we need to preserve this. We just need to refine these questions. I know we're loath to add a new question, but I think a separate question is, if you're starting a new project, would you choose Node? And that's a fundamentally different question that we're asking. All right.
Okay, yeah, I mean, could we simplify this just by asking people what company they work for?
Well, honestly, like
I wasn't joking. I guess, I think that would.
And then you just send emails to them asking, do you want this sponsor?
Can you fill it form with your company already made?
But I mean, like realistically, we could categorize things later if we know which company we're talking about, right?
But how, what if it's like,
startup, yeah.
yeah, startup. how do you find
Startup
it?
has a name.
Yeah, but
How do you
there could be
define-
multiple startups in different places with the same name.
Yeah.
Or
How do you
no,
know how-
like-
Company website.
But we are the people who are going through the results, and there is no way I'm going to Google your startup.
That's the whole problem. This is like a very standardized thing in like the data industry. I don't think we need to like, I would say don't use this list. There is a list of categories. Like it's on my work laptop in my hotel, but like this is a standardized thing. I don't think we need to debate over this. Like we could just go with, and it just like there's variants, but like we could just go with a standardized thing. I'm sure multiple people in this room have access to this, probably without knowing.
Okay, well, let's go to how long ranges instead
Do
of
you want to
now?
write it down as a suggestion? Because
Okay.
we're not taking notes, because they're all there.
Okay, we match those together? No. Yes, let's add another question to 15 to the question. Okay, let's add another question to question 15 instead of question 16. Okay.
It should be another answer.
What was question 16?
Like instead of an open question.
What was question 16?
Yeah, so let's instead of question 16, which is are there technical priorities that you believe you're missing, we can just add another order here.
Yeah.
And okay, let's.
I would like to know the explicit ones. I do believe that brings some benefit.
Yeah, but then
Make
multiple
choice.
people obligated to. Like they feel obligated, they must have an answer since it's a. separate
You
question.
can just skip it, probably. You can make it optional.
Yeah, that's you being reasonable, but not everyone.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, that's you being reasonable, but if you put it on a separate question, maybe not everyone is going to.
Yeah, I mean,
Also
let's,
makes it long.
yeah, let's remove the question and add
If we have
Or
other,
the
it's multiple choice, they
field.
can still provide the information.
and.
So they just add it here. or what?
Same for the.
Yeah, we'll add another option so they can choose modern HTTP and something else, and also other.
Yeah, but I don't want to have other as just other. I want to have like the actual text input. That's what.
Yeah, you have the text
No,
input.
yeah,
Yes,
sorry.
yes,
Other is
yes,
a free
the other
response.
always
Yeah, yeah.
has text input.
Other is always free response.
If you're entering other, it's not a current technical priority, right?
Huh?
If I'm just going to make something up, like I really want Node.js to support a Go native binding or something, like it's not a currently established technical priority.
Yeah, it's not the current.
So you need to reword the question slightly to make sure that other is clear, like. Because
well, I mean,
question 16 is like asking people to nominate things that we would like to become proper
Oh,
priorities.
that's true. So just remove the
That's
word
true.
current.
Oh yeah, that's why it was split into two questions. That's the reason why. Because this one are like established and
We could reword it. Which of the current technical priorities are important to you to please list technical priorities or are any of these technical topics important to you?
Is it important to you or important to you at work?
At work?
Important.
You should write that because I care about shit on this list that my work does not care.
Does it matter though?
Yes, that is very different.
What priorities are likely
No,
to
but
be
I mean,
funded?
do we care?
What priorities are more likely to be
Yes,
funded?
we should.
Okay.
I mean, asking both is fine. Like, I think that's a fine thing to ask. Like, what do you care
or
about?
you mean like change it important for your business?
Yeah, important to you at work.
We
or-
could make it like a matrix and have your work. And then you can take multiple things for both, so it can be
Is
important.
that an
keywords.
option in whatever survey format we're using?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, then that works. Feels good.
I think that like making the business distinction is good to get like
You're in
funded.
me, you're outie.
Huh?
You're in me, you're outie. Oh, it's a severance.
Oh,
Oh,
at work, outside work.
How would you know what your really wants?
From severance, I guess, huh?
That's cool. So should we add the other field and remove 16? I think so, but we need to reward this a little bit. Okay. We add floating contour. Then we have should add cross runtime compatibility into interoperability to questions about technical priorities. Should we?
Yes.
What was the question?
Regarding the previous feedback, I also wrote,
Oh yeah, 18, 17.
yeah, I think they should also be.
Yeah. Okay, should we add cross runtime compatibility, interoperability into technical priorities of question 15? I think yes. Add cross. Interoperability. Okay. Are you using the following new stable features? ESM isn't new, but it's more adoption. Let's see. Following stable features.
You want to clarify this one?
ESM, I mean, ESM generally as a module system.
ESM at all is, sure, it's not a new feature anymore, but it's still very low adoption. And so to me, putting this on the survey is, in this question, is still relevant.
I believe there is actually also another problem because people believe they use ESM, but
They
it's
use
transpiled down.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not a thing.
And that is something 99% of users have no idea about.
We last
That's
year
right.
we added a question, are you using ESM syntax in production like import exo? Nobody answered to that. People don't understand that, don't know about that. So we decided to drop it because like people don't know.
Even that piece of data
Like
in and of itself
transpire
is
using
interesting though.
oh, yes.
Right. We'll also have like the point of is like this, we're running them repetitively is to get that data over time. So you want, like, if you got nobody answering yes to that, or like people are confused about that, you want to get that data repetitively.
But the question itself is confusing, and it's all like another thing that we think people confuse is async hooks, and like we got like 50% responded. They said they use async hooks. I doubt that 50%.
They do because they're our APM customers, so they all use it.
Yeah, but I think people confuse it for like async await syntax. So we want to remove confusion.
I would literally add not async await.
And also that it's not async local storage. You know, they also confuse that.
Yeah. Do we need a distinction between whether they use it directly or whether they use it like downstream?
Well, I think.
I guess it's
I think
difficult
it's
to,
no.
like, you
Yeah,
don't know
it's
what you're doing.
difficult. Yeah, I think that actually was a,
I had the suggestion like, maybe we have like a usage counter in Node that you can run and like has a flag, dump a JSON, then you know whether it's used. If you, I don't know, run a test suite, then you know whether your code has run through this. But that would be pretty further along, or you know, some kind of command that you can quickly tell whether
Because-
you're using it. But
Um,
there was like concerns about people probably would feel hesitant about running something.
I mean, if it's in the runtime, I don't feel like I feel like people would be fine with that.
Yeah, I think a
We should
user
remove it?
counter would probably be more accurate. That's also how Chrome does things.
Yeah, I'm a huge plus one on that.
yeah.
That was released a long time ago.
Like, I think if we position it, like, it seems pretty innocuous. We're just checking to see if you use a feature, not like how you're using
Yeah, no, I mean, the
Yeah.
usage counter would be pretty safe because like you pass a flag, it dumps a JSON, you can just see the JSON like something one, something two, like.
Yeah. That's fine. Do you want to cut off this column and go to the next one, or?
Oh, yeah, let's.
We've only got 5 minutes.
Yeah, let's go to the next.
Just comment on the usage counter thing. Collecting the data locally is actually fairly trivial and easy to do. Convincing people to submit it is something else entirely. And yes, we might decide, oh, it's built into the thing, there's no problem with this, just give us this information. But I've talked to quite a few companies about this, and they're just not they just prefer not to give out any information about what they're using and just don't want to provide that information. So we just got to be careful about how much we index on that signal.
If you can see the JSON representation of like the usage data, like voluntarily decide to submit that, it's probably a lot better than these like magical like.
Yeah, maybe like
feedback
async
buttons.
hooks.
I don't know what you're
it's just-
exfiltrating from my company. If I press that button, it says send feedback. I have no idea, but I see it's a JSON object. It's like I'm using async.
But just keep in mind that there's that in a lot of companies that are in highly regulated industries just have a really high bar for any level of data.
Because they're not going to answer this survey in the first place.
I think just
True, but I'm just saying we just have to make sure we don't over-index on those signals, right? We
Yeah.
can't say that, oh, we have that, that's the signal we're going to follow. We're going to get incomplete data that way.
We need an option then that says I'm not allowed to say.
I also
Fair.
I do think, just to your point, James, I think it is better to have that tool and have incomplete data than not have the tool and not have any data.
And people guess
Oh,
whether
oh
they.
yeah, I'm plus one on having it. We just need to make
Okay.
sure we don't over-index on it.
Sick.
Okay, are you using this deprecated or legacy features? So we need a list of deprecated features.
I have seen that. Do you have?
Oh,
Sorry, I was just gonna point out that
I can't see that.
there are sources of this kind of data that exist, but maybe behind various other agreements and things. More bluntly, APM vendors tend to have this kind of data already. But it's difficult for us to share. This is something that we may be able to talk about from like a partnership perspective or something like that. But today we obviously wouldn't be able to share this kind of data, but in the future, or perhaps with some kind of agreement, I don't know. This sounds like policy stuff that I have trouble navigating myself, but this might be something we could do. I don't know.
I was going to say most of the time users don't have any clue what deprecated or legacy features they're using, because most of the time those are buried in some, deep in some dependency tree. So it's
We only have a
again,
few
there's
minutes
limits
left.
to what these questions.
Yep.
3 minutes.
Yeah, I think the deprecated legacy features make sense. Probably it's just to make people aware that they're using
You are deprecated.
Yeah, we put a list of some deprecated features, but we also need to figure out what that list is, so requires some work. What is your native language? This is something we wanted to add to. We discussed about adding it. other JS server side runtimes as Dino bound for workers. I don't know about this.
I wouldn't.
This,
I
yeah,
wouldn't
but
know.
this is one of the top about it. So
Why do we want to know that?
Just useful to know how precarious our position is.
There's a compatibility question there, like if they use multiple runtimes, they might want to be able to reuse code between them.
Yeah, that's I think that's the most important signal right there. There's a certain amount of, hey, this is a Node API, we'll change it whenever we want to, but you know, the ecosystem is broadening. And it's good to know just how much it is broadening, so we can have a sense of what impact certain changes we make in the API will have. Like think of async local storage, right? Think of like async local storage. We could, if we change an API in async local storage, we could end up breaking a lot of people using these other runtimes. So we need to be careful.
So what percentage would be your, just a wild guess for users using more than one engine at a time?
I have no idea, no way to base even a guess on percentage.
Because I would expect it to be a very low number, but okay.
In one app
Well, for instance, everyone that's using Cloudflare workers is using Node too. So like, you know, we don't know. We have no idea how many people are using multiple.
okay. So I think we are at time. But we will review all your feedback, and as next time team, we will work on the PR, so you can still review the PR, but please do it in the next 2 weeks, or someone will be very mad at you. All right, thank you. Bye.
Good job.
15-minute break.
Stop the recording?
Pretty sure it's isn't done. We can pause. I guess it's my session, so I'm going. This way. First, that's it. Actually, can I actually go full screen with this? Okay, I just do it like this. Sorry.
You mean?
Sorry.
You mean? Full screen?
Yeah.
And then product.
Yeah.
Take a slideshow if you want to.
It's a bit.
Oh,
You can see it's behind it.
Oh, that actually works. Okay. So this session is about customization of the modules. Really trying to have a consistent customization experience for all kinds of modules that we have. And to talk a bit about how we got here. Before 2020, I think it was backported a bit further, but around 20, there was experimental loader, which is a command line flag that's already deprecated. You're not supposed to use this. You're supposed to do -- import, but that's kind of a detail. Oh, Jeffrey hasn't stand up. Jeffrey?
I think you just want to be added as a panelist.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Sorry. I will make someone else co-host.
Do you need to?
Okay.
If I'm I don't know.
About that, there was previously there was the loader, which was in-thread, but it was asynchronous. Because the way the ESN loader worked in Node.js was asynchronous, so because it was both in-thread and asynchronous, then you cannot make it work for require, because require is asynchronous. And then around 20 or sometime around that, because vector happens, to make it work for require, because like once you have anyone transpiling ESM to CommonJS, it kind of like doesn't work as you expected, or there tend to be some requiring your graph. So one of the things that I think Antoine did was to make it work for require. But that also ties into some of the things that Jacob did, which is like for that async hook to both happen for require, you kind of have to move it off thread and block on it. So that was this is like this kind of weird triangle situation. Like you can only have 2 of them. You cannot have 3 of them at the same time. So it kind of like, because having it for require was the more important than having it in thread. So it was moved off thread. So that we have the other 2 parts of the triangle. And then moving off thread was like a breakage for many people. Also, there are some use cases where they actually need to mutate the global context, or if you have something off thread, it's easy to like introduce deadlocks. Because you have some worker that's hosted, that's like managed by node, you have very little control over it. It's very easy to run into some weird deadlock situation. So then we moved, then we added another hook, another API that allows you to do customization that does the other 2. So this is like not a replacement. We just add another one that does the other 2. So that if you don't care about asynchronous loading, which I guess like is not usually something you actually care about in many cases, because a lot of existing customization of module loading were based on, like they were doing that before these. So they were already customizing CommonJS module loaders. So they were already asynchronous or have a way to work around it. Like Babel, they spin their own worker. So they tend to already have some way to deal with the restriction of being asynchronous. So for that kind of user, like async is probably the least important aspect for them. So I added another API that provides the other 2. So the last one was released in 23. There's a backward in 22. It's probably going to be out in the next minor release, or Raphael told me that it's merged or something. So
yeah, then it like 2 days ago.
yes. So that's what we currently are. And there are some discussions about what to be done for module register, because it still has several quirks because of that off-thread pattern. Because when you try to move, like customize require in a imported CJS, and you need to tie into the way that it currently works based on the ESM module loader, it reinvents require in a way that does not completely tie into how the regular require works. So there are some certain quirks. For example, the hook can get called twice, or the result hook, when it got invoked twice, it has the absolute risk, the absolute path instead of the specifier, the thing you actually pass to require. Or the source code can be null in the load hook. Like load is the phase where you get the path and you need to provide the source. So for example, customization hooks can, instead of reading from disk, they can read from somewhere else. And for the loading phase of CJS require, that goes through module register. This is null because of some internal like misfits in the implementation. So then user have to like deal with the null, and they have to read it from disk. And if the subsequent hook does actually not want you to read it from disk, it actually does something else, then you're doing something that next hook doesn't want. So there are like certain quirks, especially when it comes to tying the implementation that's very specific to the ESM loader to make it work for require, it kind of works, but there are many quirks. Some of them are already documented. Some of them are recently reported to us. I have a link to the documented ones. I proposed, I'm not sure if I put it in a proper proposal, but we discussed it in, I think in Dublin. No, I think in no computer somewhere that, or even before that, like one of the idea to get rid of the quirks is to, because module register hooks, the one that's synchronous and infinite does not have all these quirks, because the way the module loaders works internally in Node.js means that it's easier to have a in-thread synchronous, something like being done in the middle everywhere, instead of having to spin out to a different thread everywhere. And also because to support require with those async hooks, it's currently always done in a way that's like blocked off thread. So you always block something off thread. So we already have something that's like technically just like a synchronous off thread customization. So it can actually be re-implemented as an internal helper on top of module register hook. It's just like internal module register hook with a bunch of built-in worker extraction on top. If you're happy with this, if you want to, if you have some async code like hooks, if the hook that you want to implement actually needs to do some async stuff like sending network requests, if you actually have something async that needs to be done, then you can use this helper that kind of like does the orchestration, the worker off thread orchestration for you. If that works, you can just take it. Or if you you can run, if you run into that deadlock situation because you don't have enough control over the worker, then you can just spin your own worker like what Babel does. So the idea is to get rid of the quirks of module register. We just re-implement it as a internal helper of module register hook. There was some previous discussions about just removing module register. Personally, I would say like that seems destructive. Like I don't think like that's in general the best direction to go. But if people find it useful and people already are using it, you know me, like I don't like removing things. I don't like breaking people. I don't like to like make people's Friday harder. So I guess re-implementing something to reduce the amount of quirks and kind of like will probably make it easier to implement. So that's my proposal about how do we deal with the quirks and simplify the implementation of it, because this will then be built on top of a part of other code that's like more easily injected into various places where the module loader does things. So yeah, that's the idea that I currently have. I have no idea how to implement this. I just think that in theory this should work, because from the code it looks like it should work. Yeah. Any comments on Jacob?
Yeah, I think this could definitely work. And I can't remember what his name was. He works with Matteo. They've been working on something called Piscine.
Yeah,
and so this may well be this utility that we can use to offer exactly the stuff you're talking about. Like we give you the synchronous version, and then we give you the tools to make your like inception, asynchronous, synchronous activity stuff via that. And then in terms of like whether or not to remove register, perhaps we can do something like try to detect if there is any anything that is truly asynchronous in there, or like write a code mod to port them from require to from register to register hooks, because some loaders or customization things can work for both. Like I have a library that does that, and the difference is basically like import the stuff and then feed that import into register hooks. So I think there's probably a path forward to, at the very least, like use the migration of it.
Sorry about Matteo, but I have a clarification. The idea is to keep module register, but it's just a shin on top of module register hook.
Oh yeah, that's, I think we should do that.
Yes,
Like
that's just a
once-
shin. It's like, yes, we have this. If you don't want to do your worker orchestration, or it's like internally, it's the same as public code. You could have done that in public code.
Yeah, yeah.
Built on top of module.
Yeah.
Matteo.
So, I think I can easily send a PR for adding an API to core for the module that I created called Everything. I posted the link in the Collab Summit. It's it basically works on top of shared array buffer, and there is a little bit back and forth between the two. And I can send a PR, and then we can progress there if you guys are interested. And it's like I literally built it to prove that this was possible. So that was the idea. So I think we can, and then we can iterate on it. Okay, if the code is not, you know, the overall code is maybe, let's see, it's 68 plus. Let's take a look. 28 lines, maybe it's less than 100 lines of code. So I can send a PR, and then we can, like, it's more work to get the tasks, the docs, primordials, all sorts of things than to do the chain. Like the key concept is very thin. It's based on V8, the V8 serialization, the serialization thing, plus growable shared array buffers. So, and then you can go back and forth in that way.
Wait, is it growable? Shared array buffer? That's growable.
Yes, that's yes, it's already shifting. But maybe not.
It's already on 22. It's on 22.
Oh, but okay, so it's new. It was not there when it oh, thank God. Okay.
There were so many. There were some crashes because of the thing, but yet they're clear.
Okay, cool. Do we need to have the async activity already removed from module loader before this really matters, or?
It doesn't matter as long as module register already works. So what we need to do is to for the existing module register implementation as an internal helper that just builds on top of. It's like it's something you could have done in public, but we just make it built in because we don't want to break people who are already using it.
Right. But because I know we also need to like syncify module loader / customized loader. Customized loader will probably then go away. Does that need to happen as part of this / before it? Is it blocking or
I don't think it's relevant because syncifying the module loader is to make a synchronous path synchronous, but a synchronous path can already call synchronous hooks. So that's already not a requirement. You just cannot call a asynchronous hook from a synchronous path, but as long as module register is like still in the current model, which is like off thread, you just always
yeah.
Or like maybe just that when we call out to the when we add new code to call out to that new helper, we don't use wait async, we just always use wait.
Right.
And that's enough.
But I think we would need the internal stuff to be synchronified.
No.
Because otherwise we'll be playing like hot potato.
So for example, when we do async load can call a synchronous load.
You mean a loader that is synchronous? Or a loader that is asynchronous?
So ESM load is the load in ESM loader is async currently. It can call out to a synchronous hook.
To a hook that is synchronous.
Yes, because async code can call synchronous code just fine. And the hooks register like the user function, the user function provided by modules register one is synchronous. So you can just call a synchronous, and the asynchronous one provided through module register you block. So it's also synchronous as far as the internal invocation is concerned. So it just always these user provided things as synchronous. So that's fine.
Right, but wouldn't it be simpler if things were already fully synchronified?
I would say it's simpler, but it's not necessary.
Okay.
It's not necessary because you can call synchronous from asynchronous, so it doesn't require the caller to be synchronous.
Okay, cool.
I think Jeffrey has his hand up, or do you have your point answered?
I just asked a question for Mateo of like, would he be submitting that as a generic utility along the lines of util.permissify?
I think I would put it in the worker thread module, but yes, that would be my idea.
But like, it's not specific to modules, in other words.
It's a worker thread thingy.
Okay, yeah, that
It's a
sounds
worker
great.
thread utility. It's not part of modules. No, well, if we don't want it exposed, then when I open the thing, we can decide it's just an internal API for now. Okay. It's I will add it as in we can decide to expose it later if we want to expose it, but it doesn't, to be honest, it doesn't the way if we expose it or not, it doesn't matter. Okay.
Well, it does sort of, because it being exposed provides a migration path to.
Right, it doesn't really need migration. It's just that it's far preferable to use module register hook if you don't actually have anything async.
Yeah.
Because that will, for one, that will be more performant at the end of the day, because async is not cheap in Node.js. So and also it's inference, so that might help you overcome certain quirks. If you want to mutate the global context, like add something to global item. So at the end of the day, like module register hook would be the thing that can give you the most capability.
Yeah.
But if you do want that convenience of just running some async code that you don't really care about the extra overhead this puts on top, then you can use it. We can still keep it. We can still maintain it. It's just like internal helper. And maybe at some point we can think about whether we want to remove it. But I guess like if people are happy with and they are not actually running into any scenario with like no more extra quirks that we cannot solve with this, then it's fine to keep it. If people still run into extra quirks that we cannot solve, then well, maybe we'll think about it again.
Okay.
That was going to be the second thing I was going to say is I wouldn't be too precious with the existing module register. It's very buggy, and I don't really see us fixing these bugs necessarily. If we can provide this utility so that there's a migration path, if even if we don't even provide module register, we could like just have people use register hooks with this utility. Yeah, they have to change their code, but it's basically the same behavior as they had before, but hopefully not buggy.
Yeah.
If you want to automate it, I guess, but I would put that as much lower priority.
I think another option that we discussed a bit further before was that we could, like, another path is to we provide the Shin internally first, and then because it's all like can be public code, we just move it into npm package under Node.js and just make it a separate package. That might also work. Just make it a separate package. So at some point we can, like, if we really decide to not to maintain it internally, but we don't want to like just break everyone, then we can say if you actually have to do it, have to have some time to migrate. In the meanwhile, you can use this npm package, which is a public helper that is built on top of module register hook, and like it works. So it's like maybe instead of import register from module, you import Node.js / register.
Okay.
I have another question on so with register, okay, there is the next, there is the next loader function, I think, being called, right? Yeah. And so if it's multi-threaded, how would it work in, so basically the main thread is going, so that the thread running the code will synchronously block all this thing until it gets called, like, because it's kind of a middleware pattern, right? So you need to call the next resolve, which is another synchronous call that goes right on the other side. And I think,
wait,
it's going to, I'm not, no,
it's not constantly jumping back and forth. It's not constantly jumping back and forth.
The end is going back, but.
Yeah, the end, but in between, it's staying within the worker.
Okay, sorry,
but like one thing one of the reasons I think we should provide, if we could.
I'm sorry, I'm lost because I think there is the next resolve function.
What?
There is next resolve. Is it a function?
Yes.
That you need to call, that the user needs to call.
Yes, but when you call them, they don't jump back and forth between the main thread and the worker thread.
Yes. Okay. Sorry. Imagine that you have multiple of those things registered. Okay. There is a user calling register hooks and a user calling register.
Yeah.
Okay. The moment you so when you block the main thread for a response, you need to respond to that query to unblock the main thread. Yeah. So if register hooks, if next a resolve is being called, okay, then it means that you will not be able to mix register and register hooks at the same time. This is what I'm trying to say.
You can, but they just can't talk to each other. Sorry? You can, but they can't talk to each other.
Yes.
Well, technically you could, but don't.
What I'm saying is, if you use this mechanism,
yeah,
it will not be possible. Either you use one or use the other. It won't be possible. It will not be possible for
Wait, no, I think this is not the case. So let's say everything has been ported from the older register style to the newer one, register hook style, and the newer one is leveraging Piscine or whatever this utility is that is facilitating the dark world with the worker. In that case, it would be part of the register hooks chain. The world pauses while it does its thing. And then when it finishes its thing, the world resumes. And nothing is staying in the worker. It's only like a temporary space-time.
Because right now the hooks are like a middleware.
Yeah.
So you have one that calls another, that calls another, that calls another.
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's essentially just becoming like nested.
yeah, but
better.
sorry, what I'm saying is so first of all, you run all the synchronous middlewares, all the synchronous hooks.
Yeah.
And after you have done all the synchronous hooks, all the asynchronous hooks are run, or vice versa. Like you can always, because sorry, okay. You need to first run probably the synchronous one and then the asynchronous. Like the problem is there is a deadlock problem.
Can I draw something on the board? I think that
there is a board.
Can I volunteer something?
Yeah.
I think the difference here is that using every sync would basically mean that like each different set of hooks that gets registered would be a different thread, whereas the current module register is like there's one loader thread that's off thread that all of the hooks share if you register multiple things. So I don't know if it would be perfectly
it's
compatible.
We don't need to do that.
But also like we're talking about this like farther future of like we've already finished register hook and we're talking about migration paths. I'm worried about us running out of time at this session. Like, is there stuff we should talk about with the sync hooks before we get to, you know, what comes the day after?
Yeah, we can come back to this whiteboard thing after. Okay, we have more time at the end. We have the building by 6 o'clock, so we can run like 1 hour and
I have
over.
I have to leave at 5.
Oh, sorry. Let's do it. Let's see if we can finish the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
There was a value effects, which is like a new hook that the new module register would unblock, because previously you cannot do this because it needs mutation on the object, which is like if you're on thread, you cannot serialize this object. Like if it has closure functions, you cannot send it over to another thread. It's like not going to work. So one of the things that moving it in thread back again would provide is to allow you to mutate the, for example, the exports, or like you have access to the module directly if you're on in the same thread. So this is so currently register has parity more or less with module register in that it provides result, which is like when you get the specifier and then get the path, and load, which is like you get a path, now you are going to hand me the source code. And the next phase usually happens with module loading is evaluation, because now you have compile it, not just controls compilation. And when you actually invoke the code at the top level of the module, so that is one phase that we have not yet provided the customization for. So this hook would kind of bridge the gap, because the use cases that we mentioned, the hooks that we mentioned before were not enough to fully meet the monkey patching use cases, or people were monkey patching the CJS modules loader for like in the wild, because there are like certain marking libraries or for example required model that modifies the evaluation results, or like just skip evaluation if you're marking things. So this hook would like bridge the gap, because there are use cases, and people do want to like do something at this phase. So the proposal is to provide a evaluation hook. There's a this content is already in the slide, so I could go through the slides. So this will be what it looks like mostly. If you have a module, node.js, this is common.js, because there are some restrictions about source text module, but let's just use the common.js for a demonstration. So for example, you have a common.js module that just does exports, you assign it, and in the value hook, you can, before you actually runs the code that assigns or like that does anything extra, you can access the exports, which is not yet filled. And then you can either evaluate it or you skip, just does not call next evaluate, does not evaluate. And then you can mutate it as you like. And then when someone else is doing require, it's going to be updated as you modify it. This works on CJS. In addition, it will work on WASM, because with WASM, we do something similar. It like the evaluation of WASM module is controlled by us. Add-ons as well. Like for example, the initialization thing that you register with the I don't remember. I think it's nappy init or something like that thing. That function, the execution of the function is also up to us. So that phase is also can be controlled by us via this hook. And I don't know whether it counts, but JSON, like the actual JSON headers, you can control it as well. And if there are any future module types, as long as they are not ESM, which is like the edge case, but future module types are unlikely to be like have that specific semantic. So those are in the spec, the thing that's the abstraction that kind of like leaves room for all these future module types is synthetic module. So synthetic module has this evaluation phase that's completely up to the embedder. So we can control that as well. We can also hook into the evaluation and give that capability to the users. It does not specifically work on source text modules, which in a wider sense is called ESM, but ESM kind of like is a concept that encompasses both source text module and synthetic module. So here we're just calling it source text module to make it clear. This will not directly work on that, or there will be some caveats because the ECMAScript restrictions do not allow you to mutate the exports once it's evaluated. Or you cannot skip evaluation because the source text modules have very specific state management in the specification. It's very easy to mess up if you skip evaluation. But I think it's possible to provide a restricted form of support in this hook for source text module. It's just that you cannot mutate it. You cannot skip evaluation, but you can observe what's happening. Or like you can just hook into the evaluation of every module. And for example, do some timing, like tracing, that kind of stuff. You just cannot mutate them. So it's the pull request is currently blocked on what it should be called. So Guy Bedford, he could not attend, but he left a comment about his final position on this. So his summary of his position is that if this book needs to move forward, as with a name called Evaluate, it must have VA support for the full support for module record mutation, like basically the same thing as other books have. And that he thinks that we should not land in pull request that creates a hook otherwise. Or alternatively name the hook as CommonJS, because the CJS evaluate, because make it CommonJS specific. So my stand is that because we did not block resolve load when they only worked on ESM, or like when they did not support require from module registrar, it's not really consistent to like name evaluate based on that it doesn't fully support ESM, because we already did not do that for resolve for load, like they weren't prefixed in any way. And also this hook does not only work on CommonJS, so it's kind of weird to call it CJS evaluate. It's the more accurate thing would be not source text module evaluate, because all the others it works. And also we did not really name resolve or load. We did not really prefix them particularly when they did not work on CJS. So it's kind of unprecedented to prefix just because it has an exception that it does not support. Jeffrey has his hand up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm not sure it's really fair to Guy to say that he's just blocking on the name. If you go back to his comment, it's more that he's saying that it doesn't work on ESM, and that's the problem. That like not just that you should name it something specific to non-ESM because it doesn't work on ESM, but like users will expect this to work on ES modules. Like we're moving towards a future where we're going to mark CommonJS as legacy so like users will probably report this as a bug or feel like it's a bug that this can't do what it says it does for ESM. Like we're going to have another situation where like, oh, for parity between ESM and CommonJS, this hook now needs to be able to do everything it can do. Like if you go back to the slide with Guy's comment, he mentioned something about adding a V8 support for evaluation hook. I think that's what he's saying is like ESM should be the primary use case. Like, I'm not saying I agree with this, but he's saying like we shouldn't ship this unless it supports ESM. Like ship it as defined here. I think he wants to be conciliatory. So it's like if you want to ship something like CGS evaluates a poor name, but maybe, I don't know, synthetic evaluate or evaluate synthetic module or something like that. It's like it's sort of like I guess we can do that, but then it's like what's the way forward then to have parity on the ESM side with this, you know, if we're shipping something that's essentially non-ES modules only.
Do you want to respond or?
I want to respond / also ask a question. So regarding the V8 support for it, one, it sounds like the spec will allow some wiggle room. So it sounds like it is possible. So if that is the case, is it likely that we will get it? Because if both of those things are true, then I think giving it a more restrictive name for, and then support comes later is kind of weird. So like, I think we could, if it's promising that this could happen, we could say this is a current limitation, we're working on it, like no promises, but rather than give it the restrictive name and then we have a name that's like basically lying in the future when it can actually do more things.
I have let me check. Not sure if this factor why.
We can code mod to migrate the name in the future.
So I have a VA feature request. So I talked to Shu from the VA team about this. And the stand is that because of the state management can be easy to mess up. Mutation is probably off the table, but observability is. So I imagine like for source text module, it's like not full, like you cannot mutate, but you can observe. I guess like that's as good as we can get because my idea about the hook is that it's not about like what the ideal situation is because that's out of our hands. What we provide is what internals can already do. Because usually when people, when users like they hook into the internals, they just want to do whatever internals can do, and they patch our internals. What we can provide is like what we, as on the node side, we can already do. Like we can already patch WASM module evaluation, we can patch add-on module. We're just giving you what we can do, what we cannot do ourselves, but no process.
So that sounds like half yes.
Yes, half yes. Well, I guess like it probably won't be possible to fully like mutate it as much as you want, but like I guess.
But I think that's the main thing people want this for, right? Like the observability use case to like proxy things.
I would say it's hard to tell because people do want to trace. For example, there was this the trace module, like when you do, I can't remember the name, but like you can do trace events with common.js module evaluation. And I think it's done by, sorry, I cannot pronounce his name correctly, but H4AD. So he was working on the common.js side of module evaluation timing tracing. But it's currently not possible to do that for ESM because ESM evaluation is not controlled by us. So this would help in making traces for evaluations, for the example. So that's one thing that's currently missing from the ESM side. So this will help with observability, not necessarily with mutation, but I mean, hooks are not always about mutation.
I take it back. I feel like most of the time, I mean, maybe if anyone from Datadog is here, Ben or anybody, but like most of the time they're doing the proxy pattern in order to do observability. Like they're just passing through and trying to measure things, right? So maybe observability is all we need.
Well,
or the primary thing you'd want.
It's different definitions of observability, right? Like observability as a space, as a product line. Yeah, sure, that's what we do. But in order to do that, we do have to mutate everything. So just without the ability to mutate things, that particular thing is, yes, mostly useless to us.
They're having a different thing that he's going to talk about later.
Yeah, I'll talk more about that after this session.
Well, okay, then maybe this idea doesn't work. But what I was going to say is like, what if this hook, what if we do kind of do what Guy's saying of like land whatever you can get out of V8 and then just have the hook support kind of like the lowest common denominator of, you know, the feature set that works across ESM as well as these other modules. I mean, you could argue that that's then like crippling CommonJS to be limited by what ESM can support, but at least from the user's perspective, it's like a consistent UI. They don't have to like worry about what type their module is, etc.
Isn't one of the objectives of this though to provide a path away from monkey patching, and then if we nerf it on the CommonJS side, then that kind of
Well, but also to have everyone migrate to ESM. Like if there's things you could still only do in CommonJS, then how are people going to be able to migrate off of CommonJS?
Brian has something?
Yeah, I mean, look, realistically, as long as the ability to monkey patch module compile is there, we're gonna do that. Because we need to support older versions of Node and so on. As long as that ability is there, we're going to do that. Like a new feature around this specifically for CommonJS doesn't seem particularly useful to me, especially if we're talking about moving to a much more ESM world, right? So like, sure, there are use cases here. I'm not sure there are specific APM use cases. So maybe at least from an APM, I don't know if any of the other APM vendors want to comment on this, but like the utility here seems a little bit less for us.
Yeah, I would agree.
Michael Dawson, we can be good.
So is the agreement that we should just not end it? I'm happy to give it up if people think that we should not end it.
I mean, there may be use cases outside of APM or something.
I mean, the only blocking thing is in the ESM support, if I understand correct.
Yes, and that's not really up.
But that's an important thing.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm for me, that's a little bit weird that you say we have to have one way that works 100% identical in both systems. And then I would just probably have different implementations because that is 100% better than what we have today. Like at the moment, CJS is monkey patched through and through, and like any minor change is completely impossible because everyone is monkey patching it. So like, why not provide a hook that makes it possible for a couple of use cases for it? Like, it feels more of a like like a little bit of bike shedding on like or nitpicking for me that we cannot reuse the same for ESM. Just a different module system. So let's use something else. Why not?
Yeah, I guess like without this hook, there's no viable path of getting rid of CommonJS monkey patching. Because you always have some missing use cases that, as far as I know, this is the biggest remaining capability that's missing from like public API. So, and I guess since it's possible for any other thing that's not source stack module, why not? But if we do not provide this, there's no viable way to completely sunset CJS monkey patching. Sorry.
So, you know, like it sounds like we would win if we had it without ESM. Like, and like it would be bad out of my perspective to say we cannot do this and because we cannot do it in ESM.
Yeah, I guess for the ESM customization specifically, it's not like it's impossible for you to customize ESM evaluation. Importing the middle managed to do it with with resolvent node by patching the source. So it would just be that for ESM, you need to be cleverer because there is no direct hook for you to do this. Or like there is a hook for the top level ESM, not the inner imported ESM. it's not like ESN is completely out of equation. It's just there are edges and you need to deal with this with other hooks. It's not going to be an easy one-way stop solution for you to do this. So that's what it can provide, which is like as much as Node.js internals can patch. You can only patch as much as we can patch, that kind of thing.
Which is fine.
Or like whether you see the hook as a like what ideally you can do versus what the Node.js modular actually can do. So that depends on how you see the hook, like whether it's like ideal model or what actually happens in the Node modular. Because my personal view of the modular the hooks is that there are always some kind of leaky abstraction. You just don't want the link to be too leaky. Like I cannot change the arguments of a internal underscore prototype function.
Yeah. Well, if it's sort of monkey patching, I would say that has pretty significant utility.
It gets rid of monkey patching of core.
Yeah, sorry. Not as a concept.
And only for CommonJS, but still, yeah.
So I personally would, to a degree, actually think of this almost as like a bug fix, because monkey patching is just a thing that happens and breaks things constantly. And so this is us like providing a way to hopefully make that happen less. And so like, would we stop a bug fix from happening because it only affects CJS and not ESM? It makes sense to me that we just land this because it makes our lives better.
And
I don't really see the argument.
To be clear about
I'm very confused.
To be clear about my earlier point, I was suggesting that we would probably just monkey patch anyway. Unless it's unavailable to us. You know, then we'll absolutely use this hook. And honestly, realistically, if it's available to us, probably eventually we would use it anyway. So I wouldn't use that data point too hard.
I think I have a slide about this. So wait. Is it this? I think the path to sunset monkey patching will not be like, yes, we are going to break you for breaking your sake. not really like that, but just that at some point when we have all the capabilities of that people are monkey patching the community solution is for, we'll start to care less when we say add an argument to module the prototype underscore compile. Like it's kind of ridiculous that we cannot add an argument or change the return type of a internal underscore function. So at that point, if you breaks, we'll just direct you to what you just use this hook. Try like you can decide yourself whether you want to continue patching or whether you want to use this hook and just not think about arguments and stuff. What would happen is more like that. Like when we're not going to break you for breaking you. We're going to not think about breaking you when we do otherwise important refactors. And at that point, we'll just have the like, if you can still fix your user cases with monkey patching, you can continue doing that. Or you can decide whether it's more valuable for you to just use the hook. That's more like the path that's this is leading towards.
And Joy, like I really don't see like that is anyone against this feeling? Like, because I have the feeling we're discussing something that is not really an issue, you know, so I would like to cut the discussion and just get to the point and where we say, yes, we want this. Is anyone against that?
I'm not against it, but I have like a parallel thing. If the goal, I don't know if this is the goal. This I think Jeffrey said this. If the goal is eventually to just like be ESM first, that's our goal. Does this just get solved when that happens? Does the monkey patch?
I don't agree that this
anyway? Okay, if that's not the goal, then yeah, I remove that.
That's like not something we can control because it's like everybody else's code.
Yeah.
Jeffrey has his hand up.
Yeah, I would say like, so first off, I already approved the PR in question. So yeah, I want it to land. And I'm happy with the name. I understand the objections, but I don't know of any better solution to them. like sunsetting monkey patching is its own worthy goal for sure, for all the reasons Joey said. We are straitjacketed by the inability to refactor anything in the CommonJS loader because of monkey patching. So it would be lovely to get rid of that. That said, though, like, you know, when we first started on the road a few years ago of module.register and the off-thread hooks, at the time the thinking was we'll build some equivalent that will this new API will work identically for ESM and CommonJS. So people like Datadog can update their libraries to just use the new API. Then they won't have to concern themselves with the differences between the module systems. And then, you know, when this migration gradually ever happens, people just start using that. And then we never really need to do anything with the CommonJS loader or monkey patching. It would just, you know, wither away or go unused as everyone uses the thing that supports both. Obviously that didn't happen, but that was kind of the thought. This hook basically means like for people like Datadog, it's like, okay, now we need to support both. Like they need to do the evaluate thing to support CommonJS, like instrumentation, and they need to do what import in the middle does to support ESM instrumentation. We're not providing them some ideal API where here you go, you know, you don't have to concern yourself with the type of the module that you're instrumenting or customizing. It's
So may I interrupt?
that's
Because in this case, I
the
would like to
downside, but
speak
maybe
for
that's just not
Datadog
possible. So this is the
as
best
a
we can do.
Datadog employee instead of being spoken for. And I would say, I don't care.
I agree.
No, for sure, both.
Also,
Like you don't care that you have.
And then I have
two
to do
different
too.
ways.
I don't care at all.
I mean, the reality is, I think for most instrumentation vendors is that they're oftentimes having two code paths anyway for CJS versus ESM for a
Many more
variety of
than
other
two.
reasons.
Many more than two.
Not anymore. Okay, I'm just saying a minimum of two for this, but
Well,
like
look,
that's
like I
just kind of
said, I already approved the PR. I was just trying to say like the even better solution would be something where we didn't have to make you do extra work. But if that's not possible, then it's not possible.
It's out of our hands.
I guess the general philosophy maybe that is good to think about is that it's okay to offload some of the complexity onto the observability vendors here. Not everything, but some of it is okay.
Yeah.
Cool. So move forward.
Yeah, we can probably just skip. The other one is from modeling, not strictly related to, I guess we already have consensus that we want to simplify the linking. It's more like a bug that this can also solve, but I guess we have no one objecting this, I guess. But that was just introduction. So I guess we can give the word to Ryan because we're running out of time, sorry.
Can I volunteer one more thing, Joey, if we have a minute?
Yes.
I just submitted a PR for the loaders repo to update the roadmap to basically have like 2 items and then everything else, which was finish the sync hooks, syncify the ESM loader, and then import.meta.main, and then all the other like ideas that we had before of like miscellaneous improvements like import maps and so on. So I guess maybe it's a question for the room is like, are there any other like priority goals that you would want included there in terms of like, you know, for us to say mark CommonJS as legacy or have CommonJS and ESM be fully at parity or as close to parity as we're ever going to be able to get them?
I feel like I might run out of time by saying the percent. I think most of the points I probably already commented in my presentation. I had a very long comment about what can happen. Basic performance, not something about performance because the module loader, I'm pretty sure the bottleneck is it's not about backward compatibility. It's just the module loader is not written in the most performant way because the require ESN is faster than import ESN. So certainly something is wrong with import ESN.
Well, I mean, I feel like syncification is kind of like the first step to that. And then after that, yeah, we need to keep working on performance. But that's like a general thing that will always be, you know, a forever goal, you know.
I cannot really off the top like that. Maybe we can come back later because this is more open. But we have a burn session. I'll keep that in mind.
We're taking.
No, Brian session. Yes, I'm Desmond.
Yeah, but didn't you say you want to take the group photo before the people?
Oh, yes, sorry.
Group photo right now.
What do you prefer?
Yes.
Like just in here or upstairs?
Oh, shit.
Here.
balcony.
Because with the remote,
Yeah, yeah.
remote groups.
Okay.
You guys have to head.
You want us to send her?
Should we sit down, stand up?
Jules all messed up.
Okay.
Try to grab someone so you only.
Non-uniform.
Turn around.
Well, I can try to grab someone so you're in the photo. I'll
Say like what are.
Yeah.
You could like have this.
Here.
I guess there's something 6 steps. There's a thing.
Pragmatic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm saying, like.
How are we taking the photo?
So you want standing there.
Maybe utility.
We found the volunteers, so Joey's in there.
Take pictures.
I guess we can just look at the camera.
Yeah.
Okay. Where are we going?
Oh, are we gonna set?
Yeah. Yeah. Everybody look at the camera.
I think we probably need to get it a bit.
Moral story from. Yeah. Screen.
I mean.
Keep going to that.
Want to be in
Oh, yeah, take the picture.
We have about.
Run.
It's your time.
Cheese.
Hey, cheese.
No, another one?
Good.
Thank you so much.
Merci.
You pas en prendre une
Let's enjoy it.
from the
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we'll do that after this next session, okay?
Wait, flat?
Yeah.
15.
Oh,
Okay.
That would take longer to get to Charles de Gaulle. You need a blank down.
Yes, the train was much longer and significantly more expensive.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Nice.
See you guys. See you next time. So.
Yeah.
Nice.
That's through.
Yeah, tables do not have a place.
Yeah.
All like glasses with a rubber bottom.
Anyway,
Bye.
Nice to meet you.
See you.
See you guys.
It was nice.
Yeah, I would do it.
You just have to share like one map between native learning.
Stop sharing, they're all like.
No problem.
It's easier to do.
For us, it's more about figuring out like, will it be accepted or not?
Yeah, this works. Feasible points. That's works. You start? Okay, so yeah, this is a pretty good follow-up from the previous session because obviously loader hosts will be involved. First of all, if anybody doesn't know me, I am not only your host, I am this person who works at Datadog. I am available on all the socials and stuff. There we are. And of course, one of the things we do at Datadog, particularly my group, what we do is APM. So in case you're not aware of, like, broadly speaking, what we do in APM, the main things are we instrument code, which means intercepting function calls, capturing some kind of state, usually variables in scope, arguments, return values, that kind of thing. And then we build our data structures out of that. Those are spans and traces. And then we ship that data off somewhere, right? So those are the three main things we do. And what I'm going to talk about here is instrumentation, the very first part. So how we do that, right away, our second bullet point is monkey patching. So you can tell this is going to be fun. So the first thing we do is we intercept code loading somehow. This is where a lot of the tricky business can happen. Today, as we just spoke about, we monkey patch compile in order to do that for CommonJS, and we do some even trickier things for ESM. Once we've got mutable objects that we can work with, we can do our monkey patching on those objects in order to instrument those functions. So again, in CommonJS, sorry.
Quick question. Does this strategy only support top level exports and functions or?
Yes, we have that. So traditionally we would do this with require in the middle, originally made by Thomas Watson, who just left the room. But yeah, this is basically just a helper library to monkey patch compile. This is not actually how it works. This is just sort of a sketch of how it works. The main thing it's doing is replacing required, not actually required, but compile underneath, and providing that to a hook, in this case indicated by instrument, which basically takes your exports object and returns an exports object, and that's it. So that's pretty straightforward, easy to do in CommonJS because we can mutate things. ESM is obviously a different story, as we've already discussed today. It's immutable externally anyway. So now what? What are we going to do? The most obvious thing, this is an approach that was put together by Gus Kaplan when Gus was interning with us at Datadog a few years back, is to basically just wrap a given module, one we want to instrument, with our own, and put a nice little backdoor in there to basically add mutability. And so, in other words, because we have internal mutability, we can use that to mimic external mutability. It's not perfect, but it gets us a lot of the way there. Today, this is encapsulated in a module called import in the middle. We released this in 2021 and donated it to to Node basically early last year. Is that the time frame? Yeah. And today, this is the APM vendor solution. I'm not aware of an APM vendor that does not use import in the middle to do this.
OpenTelemetry also uses import in the middle.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not aware of one that does not use it.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I just mentioned internal mutability. What if the libraries we instrument also depend on internal mutability? And while that may sound extreme, and while this example may seem extreme, let's just take a quick look at it. In this case, we're exporting a variable called foo, and also a function called init. And what init is doing is actually populating foo with a different value. So now it's changed those exports. It's done the whole internal mutability thing. If we were to instrument this, we would have a pretty huge problem because we don't necessarily have the values at load time. We would only have them when init is called. We could deal with this on a case-by-case basis, maybe. But dealing with this in a general sense is not really feasible because we don't have any way of knowing when that change event happened. So the solution to this we've come up with is not to do monkey patching. Instead of monkey patching, we're just going to transform source code. That's very easy to do in loader hooks. Obviously, we have the load hook. It gives us all the source code. We can transform it. Not just in loader hooks. We can also use this in other environments like bundlers, builders of any kind, because most of those provide hook systems that we can take advantage of. So that's what we've been working on since about mid last year. It's loosely modeled after what we did in Go. So in Go, another language we support, we built a system called Orchestrion. I encourage you to Google that word to see why we named it that way. It'll be obvious once you see. And in this Go tool, it's operating at build time to do instrumentation, much like we have to do in JavaScript, right? That has since been donated to OpenTelemetry. And so that's a nice open source project. Everybody can have a look. It's quite interesting. It's built on this this sort of language in YAML, this DSL for doing instrumentation, right? So it's taken away a lot of this sort of programmatic approach and done it instead in YAML. If you've ever done aspect-oriented programming in something like Java, some of this stuff will be familiar to you because we're finding join points and we're replacing it with code in this advice portion here. So given that we already had this for Go, the approach we took is to do something similar for JavaScript. And so this is the resultant project, Orchestron.js. It's not yet released. My goal was to release it by today, but unfortunately that didn't happen. So we're going to aim for early next week on this. But this is not a JavaScript project. This is a Rust project, primarily for speed and the type system and all that. But mostly actually because it provides, there is a very nice parser framework we can use there called SWC, which of course we already use in Node for other things. So what this system does is, given something that we might want to instrument, maybe something like fetch, I don't know. What this will end up doing is replace this code at load time, again, using a customization hook with this fun mess, which is what it's actually doing. It looks like a lot, but what it's doing is fairly simple. It's inserting an import of diagnosis channel, creating a diagnosis channel, and then moving the body into this traced variable as an arrow function. So that way we're preserving this and arguments and stuff like that. For the most part, the scope is preserved. And then we're just calling the tracing channel. We're using trace promise in this case and passing in the arguments and the this object. And so this gives us pretty much everything we'll ever need in order to do the kind of stuff I was talking about at the beginning, right? All of our retrieval of arguments and return values and, you know, starts and ends and things like that, because that's the stuff that's given to us by tracing channel. So much like in the Go case, we have a nice YAML language for defining this. So given a module name, a file within it, and a version range, that's enough to decide whether we're going to instrument. And then once we're in there, we have a function query, which basically in every case, and I'll get to why, is enough to find which specific function within the file we want to instrument using what I just showed you. And then we can decide whether it's going to be trace promise, trace sync, or trace callback. And then also provide a tracing channel name. So what's next? Next week, this was going to be today, but you know, things happen. Next week, hopefully we'll release Orchestron.js. And then in the near future, among many other things, we want to eventually move this, much like we did with import in the middle, to either Node or OpenTelemetry for maintainership, because this is not a solution that should benefit only one vendor. Hopefully our friends here at Sentry and also folks in New Relic and so on will be happy to take part in maintaining this. It's not perfect today. There are a bunch of edge cases that we haven't taken care of in there. So, you know, as we find the cases we all need, you know, we'll all be able to contribute to this. Other things we want to do is build a generic customization hook wrapper. What do I mean by that? Is today we actually include this as part of another tool that we have at Datadog for application security. So basically, because they were already, that team was already doing a bunch of translation of code using the same tool chain, right? Using SWC and all that being compiled to WebAssembly, right? So that it was WebAssembly in the loader hook. But for a more generic use case, we should be able to run this on its own. So that's kind of a next step there. And of course, as we find that we're more or less able to like find functions within files to instrument, we may need to change this query language a little bit. So those are the things we expect are going to come up in the near future. So that's a bunch of userland stuff. What does that mean for this group? Apart from the fact that, you know, this is a path, it's the path we have now for instrumenting anything in ESM, which we were not necessarily able to do with import in the middle. Right, so apart from that, well, one thing we found with doing this is that tracing channel isn't great for constructors using class syntax. Stephen, we've spoken about this a little bit. The main thing is that with where super is and where this is, we can't just put that all into a function. It's not necessarily going to work. We can't put the context object into the tracing channel the way that we were doing in the other examples. So right now we're just doing that manually. And in order to do that, we would need to call it enter with directly. or use the alternatives that were discussed yet earlier today. Was it earlier today or yesterday? I forget now, but those options will need to be considered. The fact that this actually introduces another parser that needs to be loaded at load time is a little bit not great. It would be great if we could have something that was built into Node. Perhaps something we could add to loaders where we pass an AST along through the loader chain. That would be pretty interesting. I don't know how feasible it is. I don't know how realistic it is. And, you know, I'm talking with some other folks, like even just the concept of a stable AST is a little bit challenging. So this could be a little bit of a pipe dream, but it would be very helpful for this particular use case. Another thing that we thought about is would native loader hooks help? So basically giving us load and resolve and initialize in, for example, an API. Those are kind of the open questions that we have at this point about how we approach this. But yeah, that like honestly is pretty much it. The reality is import in the middle gave us a bunch of things that we couldn't solve, such as the lazy initialization of exports that I showed you earlier. And without doing something like just looking at source code directly and transforming it, we didn't have a whole lot of other options. So here we are today. That's pretty much it. I can go into the constructor weird case if we want, but other than that, that's it. Happy to answer any questions, or we can talk about those other ideas I brought forward as well.
I was just curious about the constructor use case that you mentioned. Maybe.
Oh well, yeah, I can share that.
So obviously, like you said, it's not great to have another partner. I understand the concerns with like stable AST. If we can at some point get that, that would be great. Because it's like obviously, let's say I have 3-4 things that's like instrument node. I wouldn't want to have like 4, 5, 6 copies of like the JavaScript parser in the project. Why, maybe that's just like a misunderstanding on my part. Why doesn't just like wrapping the exports with a proxy object thing? Or wait, never mind, that's still transform. Yeah, that's still transform. That doesn't help. That's like, we still need that point of interaction.
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like the thought process we had a bunch of.
Yeah. So yeah, yeah, you probably like everything I'm trying to come up with like on the spot, you probably thought of like a million times already. And like, I mean, obviously like it didn't start with like a compiler. But
yeah, I mean, like the other thing is like the design of import in the middle was originally to replicate what we had with require in the middle, so that we could reuse existing instrumentation, so we didn't have to rewrite most of our code, right? But you know, that's one of the things we run into here. Should I go into the constructor stuff or?
Also, respond when we got their hands up.
Oh.
I thought do you have something?
Oh, I think you got that. We're look at this.
All right, cool. Give me a sec.
So there's 2 people.
One is joining. One is
yeah.
We should be branching. I should have not stopped screen sharing. That was not smart. Are we back? We're back. Okay. So in the constructor case, because we're unable to use the tracing channel directly in order to capture things like the arguments, or well, the arguments is not so much a problem, but the this object, we weren't able to do that immediately at the beginning, like before the function call, because of the fact that super could be called within the constructor. So because of that, we needed to make sure that the this object was added afterwards, and which we didn't necessarily have a way to do with just tracing channel using the external API for it on its own. So the result, and this is pretty imperfect code, apologies, but the way we did this, and this is just last week I threw this together, is to call the individual component channels of tracing channel directly at the appropriate places without creating a new closure in here. Not great, but it's what we have today. I'm very open to suggestions from anyone in the room on better ways to do this.
Yeah, this also isn't using the run wrapper, so the run wrapper doesn't work.
Exactly. In the use case that I had, I didn't need to preserve scope for this one, or sorry, async context. But broadly speaking, we would need to preserve async context, and so we would need a solution here. Today, in a future iteration of this, will most likely have to use enter.
Not sure if I'm understanding correctly, but the part where it falls apart is that you will need to introduce a closure somewhere.
It's not that it's a closure, it's that inside it, super could be called. Right, and before that, I'm making reference to this most likely.
So who is calling super here?
The original constructor.
Okay, so you cannot wrap it in a function of yourself when the original code calls super. Is that the problem?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Like, so like here's the original code, here's the rewrite the code.
Really magical.
Sorry?
Super is just really magical.
One way to put it.
Yeah, like the patching otherwise, like tries to put it inside of the arrow function, which is not gonna work very well.
Right. So yeah, and I mean, we needed to put it into a function in order to use tracing channel to do it.
Yeah.
So like another opportunity here would be other primitives around tracing channel that would, make this easier, but like, I don't know what more you would do except provide something like enter width and the channels directly, right?
Yeah, like we already talked earlier, but if the async context goes the way of the using syntax, we could in theory do the same thing with the channel.run stores. We could have using syntax equivalent. We can do that without the callback that it needs.
Yeah, and as long as we're talking about a function at all, that would work here.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's helpful information at all, but like when I hear super, it rings a bell because I used to implement the private methods in V8, which has a funny all the class fields and class private stuff in the sense that they have a funny semantic like bugged me for a very long time because it's very prone to bugs, is that all of them has to be done right after super is called. So in VA,
I mean, it sounds like the same problem.
yeah, the AST, the parsing part of VA, they tracks where the super is last called and they kind of rewrite the AST. It's kind of, I guess, I'm not sure if it's exactly the thing, but in VA internally, when we were implementing these class field initialization, it just rewrites basically rewrite the AST to like insert some, it doesn't really insert, but it calls out to a symbol property, private symbol property on that class, on the constructor, which calls out to a function initializer. So I'm not sure if that's useful at all, but if you have some kind of like function, if it's a class, and well, if it's a proper class, and it has a class field initializer, I think the initializer is going to be called right after super is called. That's kind of the semantics that bugged the implementation for a long time because that's very intricate semantics. But I'm not sure if just FYI.
Yeah, I mean, that leads to what Alex was saying earlier, like super is special. Special things happen.
Yeah, I was just thinking like if you need something to happen right after super is called, using the field initializer might be an answer. But not sure if that's useful.
It's certainly worth taking a look at.
Essentially stupid question, but if you've got a compilation transformation set, whatever you want to call it, is there any reason to express the set of functions that you want instrumented in a YAML DSL, or can you have like a comment syntax or something?
There's all kinds of ways we do it. I mean, the thing about doing it in syntax is that would imply that we're in the code already, right?
Right.
And if we're in the code already, you might as well just do a direct usage of tracing channel, right?
Okay. So you want to be able to instrument other people's code with this?
That is, well, instrumenting other people's code is what we do. That is data. But like as to the choice of YAML, like this doesn't have to be YAML. We can configure this any which way we want, right? This is just convenient for us.
Okay.
Turns
Yeah, thank you for sharing this example. I think this case is the example. It one of the motivation that we try to propose the using declaration for the async context, because not only super is in this case, there are other syntaxes in the language will change semantics when we move around in the function scope, because different function has different semantics for some keywords like yield and well, something like that. So in this case, it's super. So yeah, I think that's one of the compelling use cases that we should do the using declarations for async context.
Yeah, so I mean, if you want, if there's someplace I can deliver this code sample, I'm happy to do so.
Oh yeah, that would be great. Yeah.
So is the goal like generic instrumentation or like just enough for like APMs and others who wants to instrument the code for it? Because there is like a billion edge cases. And especially like once you go off like the happy path of like strict mode, classes, all that, like things get very messy very quickly. And show you.
Yes. Yes, I mean, like, obviously, we're going at this from the angle that is most useful to us. But, and what that generally means is strictly functions. Like, we're not talking about things that aren't functions. For us, that is enough. But we do want to have pretty maximal coverage of any type of function, any kind of weird case in there, whether it's strict mode or not. Sentry folks, I don't know if you want to add to that at all or agree.
Yeah, I
disagree.
mean, this is kind of what we've been trying to accomplish with import in the middle. So being able to replace that completely, but have it work in more cases, more libraries, is like the ideal. Because the reality is, again, like import in the middle just doesn't work at all for many people, many setups, many like really popular libraries that people want to use. And we have like no alternative for them. So
to give a concrete example, certain versions of Open API will generate modules that look like that pathological example I showed you earlier.
So basically, given the way like people write JavaScript in practice, this catches a lot more cases than like the import limited approach where like we assume we need to build it.
Yeah, given what we've seen in the wild, yeah.
If when you rewrite the code, we can pretty much do whatever.
Exactly. If it's lexical, like the moment you have a with there and like it takes an object from the outside, you have no idea what's on scope, right?
Luckily, we haven't run into that yet. But then again, once we do, if we already know ahead of time what the code looks like and we know where to inject in order to do the things we want to, then we're good to go. Like in the YAML definition, for example, like we're talking about specific Semper version ranges, specific files, specific modules. We know what that code looks like. So as long as we're targeting the right thing, we can be pretty sure, I don't want to say more confidently than that, but pretty sure that we're not going to screw things up in a way that we can't predict.
And we already discussed like even ways to build it safer for versions where we do not know how it changes.
In the with syntax example specifically, like it wouldn't actually matter because you're only looking at the point where the function declaration is, and so it's just whatever the name of the function is at that point. So if you like try to put it in, like into like some object and then like.
But I think Benjamin's point is that
into something, like it's not going to look at where it is there. It's going to look where it's declared.
But it might be declared inside a with.
Yeah.
Sure, but if you do that, like it's still gonna, like the way it works, it's gonna find a function in the HT. It's gonna patch that function. Like if the with is overriding that something else, it's gonna behave the same way it already would have.
I mean, luckily that is pretty much like unused in the wild.
Yeah, well, like I said, we haven't run into it.
Yeah, this is a language feature that most people just don't know about.
I think it's fine to ignore like all the stuff that isn't lexical as long as it's not communicated. It works in every case, but like in the like regular cases, like I don't think it's reasonable with like mutable arguments, objects, and that sort of stuff.
Sorry, Jeffrey.
I could say something.
Yeah, Jeffrey.
I was just gonna say, like, so I love this approach of like do it at build time rather than runtime. That feels way more powerful than what we have. Because so beyond that, like beyond like all you're talking about of like being able to customize it much more specifically and so on, you could also throw errors, right? Like so like if someone uses with whatever, you just throw an error that they're doing something that's not supported. Like you have all this flexibility that you don't have where at run, you know, you don't want to throw an error at runtime, right? So like you can kind of guide people to setting up their code correctly to be instrumented and check that it's set up to be instrumented properly and all those types of things. So this feels like the way it should have been done from the beginning rather than require in the middle, import in the middle. So I'm very excited by this approach. So
I mean,
yeah.
maybe we're all still learning, right? But
Yeah, I know. Famous last words, of course, but still,
Yeah.
you've come up with a really great idea. So
Well, so one thing I would point out though is that when you suggest that like, you know, we could detect an awful case before runtime, right? If we're already aware of the code, and we probably would not have to deal with that because we would have taken care of this in our test suite. The other thing is if we're instructing people on how to make their modules more instrumentable, we're not going to make it better for Orchestrion. We're going to make it better for tracing channel, right? We're going to convince them, hopefully, to implement tracing channel within their libraries so that we don't even have to do any of this operation, which is something that Sentry has put a lot of effort into as well, as I understand.
well, aren't you also trying to customize user code that would be unfamiliar to you? Or are you only focusing on libraries like Undici or Express or like libraries that are known?
For our purposes, primarily right now, all those kinds of adjectives, typically only modules, only published libraries, because user code, at least in our customer base, presumably the same in yours, a Sentry over there. If people are doing stuff in their own user code, you're going to give them an API to do so, and they'll be working with that, right?
Yeah, it's like classified basically as manual instrumentation, and it's their end. The reason we have to do this is because users can't reach into those libraries themselves, right? So we have to do it for them.
Well, they also don't want to.
Yeah.
This has to be like the last transform to run, right? It's like syntax wise.
Why?
Someone might be using like a newer TypeScript with like a loader or like anything else that like, oh, but it's just modules, right? It's just packages, right? It's not, it doesn't
It's
run
just
on your-
packages, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, just in node modules.
But to your point, if somebody's using another loader and it's doing something for some other purpose, maybe they're using another application security project that's doing a bunch of other insertions,
Yeah,
right?
any other instrumentation, yeah.
I mean, so first of all, the first thing you have to deal with there is, of course, source maps. If you're using SWC for
Yeah, you
this,
get
which we
that.
are, then you get that basically for free. So source maps is one thing. The other thing is, what if they've changed it in a way that we are not familiar with, you know, and so our function query is no longer correct. If that happens, yeah, we're gonna have to figure that out, what the correct ordering is gonna have to be there.
Yeah, but since it's packages, like it's less of a concern than I initially thought, because people typically like don't like even like security vendors that will like transpile stuff in node modules,
such as ourselves.
We don't do security, but yeah, but like even companies that do that probably don't.
So worst case is pretty much it doesn't get instrumented.
Yep.
Yeah, but like as the platform, because like I don't work for that development center, like as the platform, like.
Well, you should.
In terms of like primitives, it's risky. Like I wish I didn't have to come for this in terms of like letting APM vendors instrument, but like I honestly like you convinced me that there is no like.
Oh, Brian convinced you to come to David, huh?
All right, Steve.
Yeah. Two things. One of them, the comment about like we should have done this from the start. So technically, the APM industry did. Concurx did this 10 years ago, and it caused a bunch of problems. But at the time, Node was a lot more unstable, and libraries were unstable, and they were a small startup. So it's possible that this will work better. I'm cautiously optimistic about it. But you know, I'm forgetting what the other note was. I don't know.
I mean, similar
Well,
things
also
we-
10 years ago, people weren't using build pipelines nearly as much as they are now.
Yeah, and well, and also to clarify, Jeffrey, none of this requires the usage of a build pipeline, right? Because we can use loader hooks.
Well, sure, but I mean, I feel like it would be everything about it for the users most of the time would be better to be done at build time. Like also for like the cold start use case, like Lambda functions or whatever, you don't want to use loader hooks for those, Sure,
mean,
the
that's-
loader hooks would be like a backup if you can't do it at build time or you really don't want to have a build pipeline, but
That's choice of trade-offs and installation methods and stuff like that, right? So like part of the way that we get deployed is not in a way that's visible at build time. So in those cases, you have to inject environment variables and do all that kind of fun stuff in order to actually activate our library. And in those cases, we'll have to call module.register or register hooks. We don't really have another option there.
Can you patch everything in node modules after install?
There is that
We could, I guess.
There's an NPM package called patch that allows you to express diffs to patch package.
Yeah, patch package.
Oh, patch package.
I wish I didn't know.
I mean, it seems like it's in the same space. It's like there's some code here, but no control over it. I want to do things to it. Like I want to address something and they'll wrap it in something.
Yeah.
The other thing I was gonna bring up before, how much have you tested this with multi-tenancy? Like if two different people want to patch the fetch function,
We haven't, but
what's it gonna look like?
we haven't tested much with that yet. I mean, that's certainly something to do. But I mean, how much does that change from our existing instrumentation? Right?
I mean, like we are patching the same things, but like if you're doing syntax changes.
Well, that's similar to Benjamin's question, right?
Yeah.
Like we'll have to be careful about ordering, both in the mechanism I just talked about where we do it automatically, or in cases where the user has a lot more control over which of these loaders is running first, right? We'll have to kind of deal with that when it happens, I think. But I think that's just a reality of doing this way.
And since it should be like maintained anyway by Node, for example, no? Yeah, I mean, or being the arc, and then like multiple providers for these things could just discuss how we implement it in a way that works for everyone.
That's very helpful. Like I always appreciated your optimism, but I assume a bunch of like security companies would. But I'm also cautiously optimistic. I think like it's.
I mean, those security companies do things today that would impact what we do, even just with requiring the middle or importing them.
Right.
So a lot of it is just the same problems repeating themselves in this new environment.
Yeah.
Not all of it, obviously, there's some unique things that can happen here that wouldn't happen otherwise and so on, but a lot of it's the same class of problems.
There's also security products like the one at Datadog that are literally already doing this.
Well, luckily, I coordinated with them.
So, and one idea is theoretically, like if multiple products would use this, he could mark pretty much like, okay, I have to change this, and then you just change it in multiple reps or something like that. I mean, we can think about that.
No. So the concern is basically like the moment you gave you give up on like it being dynamic. The minute like someone patches, like does a security patch, says, hey, I want to replace this function, like your instrumentation doesn't work anymore, which I guess like that doesn't break the user, but it breaks like the functionality the user wants from.
Still true today, though.
Yeah.
Still already true with requiring the middle import.
Well, if you do require in the middle or import in the middle and they run before you and you run after them, you still instrument just the patch function, right?
Sure, but it could be a completely different function now. Could be completely useless data.
Yeah, I guess like not in a security case, but in general, yeah. Like what's the alternative like for the platform to provide
Well, okay, so like I was suggesting, if the platform gives the platform being Node here, gives us an AST to work with in loader hooks, then we don't have to do most of this stuff. That's obviously a lot. There are a lot of implications there, right? There's a lot of big ask.
AST as in V8 AST or as an SWC AST from like AML?
Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter.
An object model that can be rendered.
Exactly.
Less than one forever though by doing that. Quite a big step.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, for AST, I think we have to note about that there's no standard for it.
Exactly, exactly. Given that there's no standard way, and given that like even within V8, there's multiple different versions of it and so on, like.
Yeah.
We have multiple versions.
Multiple versions,
Yeah, we have multiple versions.
What do the languages do differently that makes it easier? Do they have a stable AST?
Some do.
Some do.
The elephant in the room. So what we need? Do we need to be talking to TC?
Most don't. Like some tools, for example, in Go use eBPF to do instrument stuff. They don't do any like code generation and compilation. But
You specifically asking, do we need to talk to TC, like Bloomberg asking, do we need to talk to TC 39?
There was.
Would that help? Wouldn't stable AST help us?
I don't have much involved with both.
No, like,
I remember there was a binary independent proposal, but I've forgotten where that ended up.
Where would it be?
Oh, yeah,
exposed outside of
binaries.
this?
Binary AST was a thing
Yes.
she was pushing for 5 years ago. Well, there is some value in having lots of tools being able to speak for the same AST. Like,
Yeah, there were a push by Go people to standardize the ASC. They even, I think they brought it to WCG, but didn't really move it forward because either the numbers didn't really live up to their promise or other browsers have concerns.
It was like Mozilla trying to do something with the ES tree stuff like forever ago.
ES Tree is still a thing that I think a few of the major ones like Acorn is free are still subscribed to. But I think even within those, there's some variation.
Do those support like TypeScript?
There are extensions. The TypeScript ESLint package has TypeScript ES Tree, which is ES Tree with TypeScript additions on top of it. So they align with ES Tree.
Right, so we can get further down this line of like, which one of these would we want to pick, but that sounds pretty scary. Right?
Yeah, even blessing any of them, even ES Tree, the most standard of them all, is an arbitrary pick. But and they make when optional chaining came out, there were different things went in about 3 different directions. And
Yeah, I was certainly not trying to imply that we should use ES tree, just pointing out that that was the thing, that there was some, at least some degree of standard efforts behind it at one point. It seems to have never gone anywhere.
Was the XKCD comic?
Yeah, there was a proposal like 6 years ago.
So is the TC39 proposal dead or what?
Yeah,
it was a binary AST proposal. I think not a. Right, but even if it's got a binary representation, it's still used.
I think that one was a little bit different from our motivation because that one was intended to ship binary AST over the web. But for our use case, we don't care about transmitting AST direct to user's machine. We are just about, we are caring about the shape of the AST. We want the AST to be stable. But this could be much more simpler than the binary AST because that could be more security issue for web browsers.
It would also just be a pain to work with.
It would, but it like if for whatever reason the binary version got pushed through, like APMs could.
Oh, we'd take it for sure. Yeah.
I think proxy objects would be fine.
You can talk about proxy later. Long stories.
More bit.
Actually, import in the middle works with proxy today effectively. Unless you guys have changed it. Yeah, it's still proxies.
With the intention to take a photo outside at some point.
Yes. So if we're done, if this is it, we can go upstairs to the roof and get a view of most of Paris, to be honest, and take a group picture up there. Apologies to the folks on Zoom who will not be able to participate, but
someone with a picture of Paris.
We'll Photoshop you all in.
Yeah, everyone take a selfie.
Post a picture of the view in the channel, please.
Yeah.
Do we need to take all this stuff out, or can we come back?
We have this
Good to
room
see you
until
all.
6 o'clock, so we can come right back.
We should say thank you to our hosts. There you go.
Thanks for coming here.
To everybody that created issues and took notes and
To the roof, the Datadog employees will have to escort everybody up there. But we have this room until 6 p.m. so we can leave stuff here if you want and then come back down and get it.
Yeah, we can.
I mean, you can take it exclusive if you want.
Yeah, no, that's why I was surprised.
Very specific. No, io vado a fare
No, magari no, però polite. So you took it.
During my
You're really good
I know. Trash.
we were all trying hard not to.
Yeah, the stairs.
There's
Stairs, it's only for that. But you have to go one floor and then take a different flight of stairs. It's confusing. Just follow the.
That's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess, as in there's so many bags in that. We don't have it for.
Doing tag on strong.
All right, I trust Paolo, it's fine.
Yeah.
Are we picking stuff up? I see somebody.
We're gonna come back here. We have this room until 6 p.m. so that's enough time to go take a picture.
You're all going to the.
To the roof, then right back down to get our stuff.
Okay.
Sound good? Yeah. Oh, because it's the thing's at 6 p.m., right?
Yeah, there's the class.
Yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back.
Quando è stato aggiunto è stato messo tu, non the next.
Do you know where?
Non mi ricordo che lo facevo, non lo vabbè come in differenza.
Yeah.
Ho sparato da tanto tempo non facevo qualcosa che non fosse quella cazzo di Kafka. Porca miseria.
Va bene a Simone, così se hai capito come giravano le cose.
Perché viene cazzo di casino. Straight looks like these guys.
Are we coming back?
We are coming back, yes.
Yes. I'm going to my yoga class.
Okay.
How is everything?
It was perfect. Everything went very, very well.
Okay.
I'll send you some more details later.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, I think this most people in here.
Yeah, of course.
As far as I know, everything is great. Thank you for your help as well.
Thank you, Marianne. See you soon. Bye. Bye.
Yeah, I recognize you from triage, like thinking of the most recent pull request to single, executable
yes.
bug fixes. Saw that one when I was
That one's.
preparing the session.
Some of our,
Yeah,
elements
yeah, that,
in our project.
I think that one should land pretty easy once CI is fixed.
I really asked me the
Okay.